It would seem that they are laying the basic groundwork for removing Joe Biden, and they're going to bring someone else in. Now, there have been many hints, each little grain of sand being added to the heap. We had a report from Axios over a month ago about how Democrats were lining up alternates, but now we have Joe Biden himself saying if it weren't for Donald Trump, he wouldn't even be running again, which is an interesting suggestion, considering that Donald Trump is facing prison and facing other means by which they're going to try to stop him from running. I believe this story right here, which is a Joe Biden on a fundraising campaign trail, suggesting he doesn't even want to run. It's only because of Trump, which opens the door down the line for a clean exit. Now, we don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but nobody really thinks that Joe Biden is going to run. Some people do, to be fair, but realistically, how's this going to play out? So we'll dive into that. Plus, we've got some really great topics to jump through. We'll talk about what happened with that house that exploded. It's not the biggest story in the world. It appears that this guy maybe was just crazy and his house exploded. So we'll get into that. Plus, we have a weird story from military.com about dozens of military men and women who, or military men perhaps, who want to overthrow the government. Oh boy, this one's going to be fun. And then, of course, we have a segment on Gen Z may be the most conservative generation ever, which we'll have to explain what that means, but I actually think it might be true. So we'll get into that. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com to pick up the best cup of coffee you've ever had. I got to be honest, man. I've been going around and going to these coffee shops. I order coffee. None of it's good. I mean, it's all okay. I went to a really nice restaurant. It was, I shouldn't say really nice, but it was like, I don't know, like $35 a person. So maybe that's not super nice, but their coffee wasn't that good. I'm not trying to be a dick, but you know, if you want good coffee, you got to buy Cast Brew coffee. Appalachian Nights is the favorite, followed by Rise with Roberto Jr. And of course, when you support castbrew.com, you're actually supporting this show because we sponsor ourselves. And Cast Brew's mission, we're going to be opening up coffee shops all over the country to create physical hangout locations. The first location is currently underway, and we are working on the corporation by which we'll be able to open up thousands across this country over the next few years. But also don't forget to head over to timcast.com, click join us to become a member and support our work directly. This show is made possible by viewers like you. I know it's funny to say, but it's true. The principal way we fund the entire operation is that people sign up to be members, and then they hang out and watch the members-only show, or they sign up just because they want to support the work we do and they want to fund documentaries and other projects we're working on. You'll also get access to our Discord server where you can submit questions and call into our uncensored show and even talk to us and our guests. So I strongly recommend that. It's a whole lot of fun. Don't forget to also smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and everything else is Terry Schilling.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. President of American Principles Project, which easiest way to describe it is the NRA style organization for families. So we go in and run campaign ads against Democrats that are destroying the innocence of our kids and taking away parental rights.
Right on, which is, we'll get into that as well with Title IX hearing happened today.
Yep.
We've had an epic exchange between Riley Gaines and a Democrat, and that was pretty brutal. Phil's back.
Hello, everybody. I am back from LA. My name is Phil Labonte. Lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains, anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. We're here with Ian.
What's up, dudes?
Hello.
Hi. Good to see you back, Phil. Oh, look at that!
Oh, no.
Wow, the energy knocked the UFO off its throne. What's up, everybody in the audience? I want a special thanks to you. If you're listening, you are listening, especially if you've been here before, because your attention is the greatest form of currency in this economy, and it really does mean a lot. It means a lot that you keep coming back and keep enjoying the show. Now, some might argue that money is the most important currency to keep this thing flowing, but I think your attention's up there, arguably more important. Let's just keep it moving.
Yeah, good to have you back, Phil. How much is gas costing nowadays?
I don't know. I rented a Tesla when I was in LA.
Oh,
so.
nice.
So, it's part of the reason why I've been talking about Tesla so much past few times I've been to LA.
I see that.
I've rented Teslas, and I'm so jealous of Tim's.
I see.
I'm just
What are the Model S?
Well, I rented a Model 3, and so I fell in love with them. I want to get one real bad. So
I think they're great.
Okay.
I've been to yours once, but
there's a story right now. People are watching Home Alone. And there's that scene where Kevin McAllister goes to the grocery store and he buys a ton of stuff, and she's like $19
or whatever.
No, $19.
It's $19.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then in like 2010 it was 40, and now it's 80.
Yeah.
But let's jump into this first story. We got this one from the Boston Herald, ladies and gentlemen. Biden says he wouldn't be seeking re-election if Trump wasn't running, which is the weirdest headline because if it's anyone other than Joe Biden, Trump loses, according to numerous polls. So let me break this down. Biden claims here's a quote. If Trump wasn't running, I'm not sure I'd be running, but we can't let him win, Biden said at a fundraiser at a private event near Boston. According to a poll report, Biden just celebrated his 81st birthday. He went on to warn that Trump has made clear what his plans would be if he wins. Trump's not even hiding the ball anymore. He's telling us what he's going to do. He's making no bones about it. Biden cited Trump's comments. He's out for retribution if he wins. Biden is just really trying to get me to vote for Donald Trump here. But let's slow this down. Biden claiming that he wouldn't be seeking re-election if Trump wasn't running. That's the headline. That's the story. If Biden didn't run, there's a poll from NBC showing that any other Democratic candidate is 46 to Trump's 40%. But with Biden, it's like Trump 43 to like Biden 39. Which is to say, Joe Biden just admitted he's a Trump supporter and he wants Trump to win, and that's his true intention.
I'm loving this bit. This is hilarious.
So Biden wants retribution too.
Yeah.
And he's like, come on, man. If Trump's going to win, I got to be here. If I leave, he'll lose. I guess.
I love it.
I just think it's so lame, right? Like you want a president that has a vision for what he wants to accomplish in the country, right? And he's saying he's just running to stop Trump. Like you need an altruistic president with a vision. I mean, we obviously know he doesn't have that. That's not a surprise to us. But it's lame that he's actually admitting it.
I fully agree. We want somebody with a vision. That's like one of my number one on my bucket list of to do for a president is give me something to live for. Yeah. What's the next 20 years going to look like, bro?
I want a president that has a vision about like not doing stuff. All these presidents that like do things like I want a president that wants to do less. We have the largest government in human history.
Well, to clarify my argument, if he's like, I'm going to shut down this organization and this organization,
just a vision, a plan.
Okay.
I'd be open to that. But I want some long-term, like, are my kids going to be okay in 20 years and why? You want the most powerful job on earth. You better give me a reason.
I think one of the things that's actually helping Democrats is they don't need to campaign on kids because liberals don't have kids. So it's really simple. They target those viral videos about dinks.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, do you think that
really
the dink stuff is that's
this is why Biden has
kids? What does dink mean?
Double income, no kids. And so Biden is basically, I'm going to forgive your student loan debt. Why? So you can go party. Come on, baby.
I just got an email. Was I telling you guys about that? I was telling Luke about it while I was down there on We Are Change show, bestpoliticalshow.com. That I got an email like last week. Hey, by the way, you have no more debt. I just saw all of my student debt. I thought it was like 8,000 of the 19,000 was gone. It was all of it.
It's all gone.
And then it went 180,000 more people got that same email.
So wait, how much did they forgive?
For me, total 19,000. I paid off 6,800.
Is that income?
I don't know.
IRS might.
It didn't.
Call
Yeah,
that
that's what people are like. Hey, that might be considered income. I'm like, well, I didn't get it. It just disappeared. I didn't. So I'll find out next year if that's an income.
I think
if
it
they
is.
forced repayment early.
Look, when Oprah Winfrey gave everybody those cars, they're like, no, that's income. No, and there was a. Now that's a little different. You're giving a car, you're giving value, but there was also Occupy did this thing where they were paying off medical debt. So what they would do is they would contact the hospitals and say, this person's been delinquent how long? Okay, we'll pay off their debt for 10%. And so someone would owe 10 grand and then they would pay $1,000 and wipe their debt, or even less, pennies. But people were then pointing out, hey, they have to report that as income because you paid their debt off.
What's so dirty about this is if they took, I had like say $10,000 left to pay off. That's my, and if they force me to pay that back early and then they're going to tax me on that forced repayment, that's like pure, I mean, that's my debt. You can't pay my debt back without my consent. That's insane. Especially if you tax my friends to pay for it.
Right.
That would be the most epic move by Democrats, is to like forgive all the debt, but then tax everyone on the forgive debt. So now they all have to pay more money and they have debt to the government instead of the loans.
Yeah, unsolicited accelerated repayments. Like,
but so it's like someone's got a loan with a private, or they're all federal loans, I guess, that are being forgiven. So...
yeah, even if it's not taxed, it's still insane that if they've taxed my friends to pay for it, that's like insidious.
There's nothing that we've discussed that is beyond what the government has already done historically done. The government
like Japanese internment camps are infinitely worse than them taking people's money for taxes.
Yeah, or I mean, whether that's the extreme that the U.S. government has done is stuff like Jim Crow or internment camps. When it comes to actually monetary policy and your property and stuff, the government demanded that everyone turn in any gold they had, any
yeah.
gold they owned at all.
Yeah,
here's the funny
you're
thing.
no longer allowed to own it. So that kind of stuff, government does those kind of makes those kind of decrees and stuff all the time. And it's
So we're gonna see this student loan repayment is instant inflation.
Yeah.
Instant. Because money that would not have been in circulation is now instantly in circulation. And the argument is it'll stimulate the economy. Sure. And now it's going to immediately result in rapid inflation as more people are spending more money very, very rapidly. It's such a dirty move. And I'll tell you, one of the dirtiest things about it, I do think we're facing a self-correcting problem. You got these viral videos where it's like a man and a woman and they'll film each other. I'm a dink. I can go and do this because I don't have kids. And I'm a dink. I can do this. And these people are excising themselves from the gene pool. These ideas will cease to exist. Democrats are utilizing that short-term opportunity to win political power and then try and maintain a system which slowly just shuffles people off into an ideology that results in them excising them from the gene pool.
I wish it excised the ideas, but since they're making internet video, those stupid ideas stay around for people like long after those two dinks are gone, that someone's going to see that video and be like, oh, they must have had a great life. I should be a dink too.
I disagree.
You don't think so?
I believe you're half correct. The video will persist. People can see it. It may influence some people, but the reality is people who are, like, imagine if a video popped up and there was a guy being like, I took a dump on my floor. That means I don't got to hire a plumber. You'd watch that and you'd be like, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. I would never do that.
Yeah.
That's right. That's what might happen with these videos.
Yeah.
If the liberals aren't having kids and they're aborting their kids and the rate at which they reproduce is dramatically lower, blue states allow abortions and red states don't. Let's just make it very, very simple for everybody. The one reason conservatives should be celebrating the overturning of Roe v. Wade is not that it's made abortion illegal in some places. It's that it's given them a guaranteed path towards a long-term victory because blue states' populations will decline. They already are. There's already an exodus, and they're already not having kids. And now they have an opportunity to abort up to the point of birth.
Yep.
If you were to ask me, I would say that Democrat politicians hate Democrat voters more than anyone else.
I got kind of this mixed feeling. I was thinking earlier about this, about people that are changing their gender or getting surgeries on their genitals so that they can't have kids anymore, or they're just opting out. Like, in a way, it's like, you might think, okay, that's fine and good because that means they'll weed away. And it's like, maybe if those people are mentally ill or if they just have some sort of illness, then we need less mental illness in the system. That's okay. But the reality is I want less. I agree, like less ill people is good, but that doesn't mean I don't want them to be sick in the first place. I want to find out what's making these people this way and solve that and fix it.
It's that they don't have any family. It's that they don't have any kids, right? Like, I know.
Well, that's not making them sick.
No, but it's making them immature. It's making them liberal. So like, hey, here's how I view it. Look, I know I'm a freak. I got 6 kids with our 7th on the way. We like our kids. We like our family. There's something mysterious about it though, in that it forces you to grow up. It forces you to sacrifice. Like when you've got screaming kids the next morning, you're a lot less likely to get trashed the night before.
You got to make a video with your wife where you're like, I'm a parent. My kid mows the lawn for me. I'm a parent.
No,
I don't got to do the dishes anymore.
We put them to work now, right? Like Saturday morning. So here's our system, right? It's called Dadderdays. Dadderdays, we get up at 7, whatever time. Well, they get up 6:30, 7 o'clock sometimes, but they got to clean the house, clean the living room, clean the dining room, put everything away. And they do that. They get donuts, get to go to the movies, get to go to Dave & Buster's, something fun that day. It's Dadder Day. It's the day that they get to spend with their dad. It works out really well because we get a clean home. The lawn gets done. You're not crazy, Tim. That's how it works with big families. That's why the families used to be bigger, was because you'd want to have more workers for your farm or whatever business it was. And
because they were like, kids died a lot at very, very young ages, babies and miscarriages and stuff. So they're constantly having kids, and then they're having a lot of them. And then a kid might die at 4 years old. So it's just like, if you don't have kids, you got to keep doing it.
Yep.
But look, man, Democrats continually offer up policies that destroy Democrat positions. Look at their policing policies. They want to abolish police in like the worst criminal areas ever. Right? I'm just going to bring it back to, without getting into an abortion debate, just the idea that someone would look at you and be like, I think you should abort your kid.
It's insulting.
I want to make sure, like if someone came to you and said, I want to make sure that if at any point, even the point of birth, your wife wants to terminate the pregnancy, I'm going to make sure she can. Yep. You're going to be like, what are you saying?
But go back to the dink
dude?
videos, right? Like the dink videos, like if my wife was telling me that she didn't want to have any more kids anymore with us or with me, I would be really insulted. Like, you don't love me enough to keep having kids. I mean, look, granted, we're reaching the older age and the maximum limit of kids we're going to be able to have. But like, if we first got married and my wife was unwilling to have kids with me, it would hurt really bad. And I think the same thing on her end. I think it would be insulting. So it's more than abortion, but I think that's a really good point. Like, it is so offensive to tell someone that they should abort their children,
or that they should be like. I don't think Democrats are coming on being like, abort your kids, but they're like, I want to make sure that there is no restriction on your wife's choice to abort your children. It's like, you're basically saying, I hope you die.
Yeah.
Like, you should not. So that's what they're going for. And it's just like, the end result of this in the long run is red states are restricting abortion. Blue states are allowing it. That's a pressure system that flows in one direction. Yep. People are going to leave blue states. And I hear people say, yeah, but Tim, immigration. I'm like, oh, yeah. It doesn't matter. The illegal immigrants that are coming in will still have the same access to abortion, which Planned Parenthoods are mostly in non-white areas. So like, I'm sorry, man, like, the Democrats seem to really hate their voter base.
But they create more voters the more chaos and destruction that they cause, right? The more that we stray from normalcy and goodness and beauty, the more everyone just thinks life sucks. The world sucks. I'm a miserable person. And miserable people vote for communists. That, like, no happy person votes for communism. It's just not how it works. And so they want to cause disorder. They want to cause unhappiness. They don't want you having kids because that gives you an investment in the future. It gives you something to look forward to. They benefit from the chaos and the dysfunction.
I just figured out the student loan repayment thing. So you got people who aren't paying back their student loans, right? That money's basically a debt. That's a dead debt bill. You go to some guy and you're like, where's my money? He's like, I don't got it. You can't beat money out of him. It's not there. So what do? Well, you can garnish wages, but then people are going to lose their minds. I got a plan. Now, if someone owes you money and you're not going to get the full amount, what do? You negotiate a lower amount. Okay, what can you pay me? So for hospitals and credit cards, they'll say, this is a trick a lot of people need to understand. If you owe like $1,000 on your credit card and you're not paying it and they're mailing you, you can call them up and offer them $300 and say, you cancel the whole debt, I'll give you $300. Otherwise you get nothing. They'll say yes. Not always, but they'll say, okay, fine. Send us $300. We'll close it out. This is what Joe Biden's doing. He's looking at all these student loans and he's like, we're not getting any of this money back. Let's forgive it all. You know why? The forgiveness qualifies as income and then they don't get a tax refund at the end of the year. We get to keep all their money. So we're not getting back the full student loan debt. But if someone owes us 10 grand and we pay them 10 grand, that's $3,000 in taxes they owe us. Then when it comes to refund season, they don't get a refund. We keep the $3 grand. So they're not giving money with student loan repayment. They're just saying, you don't owe us anything anymore, but that counts as income. Now you got to give me $3 grand.
Yeah. I think you're on something.
And instantly comes out of your taxes without you realizing it. I'm wondering if we're going to hear a lot of people come, like April, just being like, whoa, I didn't get a refund this year. Yeah, they took it but what's going to happen is they're going to be like, well, my student loan's paid off, so what do I care? Mm-hmm. But that allows the government to retain a large amount of money.
There's 804,000 people got paid back 39, how much was this? 39 billion? 39 billion.
What's the average per person? And then slice off 35 or whatever, 30% towards taxes. Mm-hmm. And that's how much they're going to keep from the taxpayer without giving back their refunds.
What is it, like 4,000?
Granted, not everyone's refund is that high. It's only up to like the what is it? What's the threshold for where you don't pay taxes? Like $15,000 or something? Something like that. Anyway, here's a story from Axios just to wrap up this portion of it. It's not just that Joe Biden said he was going to he wouldn't run if Trump wasn't running. Even Axios reported a month ago, Democrats have been working behind the scenes, a shadow campaign to get rid of Joe Biden. So we're about to enter the new year. I hope y'all are excited for the holidays. I know I am. And I don't understand how they pull it off. How do they swap out Joe Biden? Is this hint that Donald Trump gets arrested, or he's already been arrested, he gets convicted, sentenced to prison, and then Joe Biden says, look, I said last year, If it weren't for Trump, I wouldn't be running. Now that he's convicted, I know he's running, but he's not here and he's not a threat. And I'm gonna bow out and hand it off to somebody else. Then the DNC declares Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer or something.
I just threw up a little in my mouth when you said that.
Whitmer,
that is what's gonna
she
happen.
can't win, so they would never do Whitmer. But some people are.
They could do
suggesting it.
someone though, like an Andy Bashir type, out of Kentucky.
Yeah.
What do you think about Newsom?
I'm not worried about Newsom. First of all, he looks like the dude from American Psycho, right? Like he looks like the Joker.
Now, I want to push back. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Do you think that your perspective is the normie perspective, or do you think because the reason I ask is I was just in California last week, and like my friends that are in LA and stuff, they generally don't look at Newsom and see the reptile that I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like the normies, I think that someone like Newsom is extremely appealing to normies. And do you think that your perspective is a normie perspective, or the perspective that someone like us would have, which is that dude is definitely a reptile?
Phil, I think your biggest mistake is that you're assuming people from California are normies. Like they're the weirdest people.
There are some.
I agree with Phil. Newsom is a master debater. And that's why it was a big mistake that Ron DeSantis tried to go up against him, because there's no upside. Newsom isn't a candidate, so the only thing that could happen is negatives for Ron DeSantis. And the important thing to understand about Newsom is that as a lizard person, he can literally say whatever he wants to convince people. So if he were to campaign or debate, he'll just say literally nonsense. Mm-hmm. He'll say, in the great state of California, our GDP is up 7.3%. Homelessness is down 8.9%. Don't believe the lies. And he just makes it up. And then what are you going to do about it?
Who's going to call him out? Not
nobody
the media.
Of course not.
There will be no fact checks.
He can literally say whatever he wants. He can say that he was the 15th guy to land on the moon, mm-hmm. and that now he's here to bring his expertise in oil to California.
So go ahead with your point, but I really want to know if you think it's something that you think is a non-biased actual guess of what the normal person is, or something that you personally prefer.
No, what I believe is that the average normal human being has no clue who Gavin Newsom is for the most part. They have not been exposed to him. He can be branded, and I think I'm not desperate. I'm not depressed about Trump going after him. Trump has a way of branding people, and I think that we have to fight differently, though. We can't count on the mainstream media to hold him accountable. This has to be fought at the local coffee shops, at the breakfast bars.
That's our plan with Casper. We got to have these local coffee shops where when you walk in, we got TVs playing. It's going to be Timcast IRL. It's going to be Crowder. It's going to be Daily Wire. That's the plan. Let me jump to the story from CNN. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. House Oversight GOP released document showing payments made by Hunter Biden to his dad. Documents say they were for a car. I wonder why CNN added that last bit. Documents say they were for a car, as if that changes the fact that Hunter Biden's business was sending Joe Biden money. It's like, but it was for a car. I'm like, oh, so is that what the corruption was paying for? I don't know what your point is, but it wasn't that much money. It was $1,380 for over 4 months. So I think it didn't. Was it 4 months? But yes, he was directly paying him. And so here's what I worry about. Sure, it's big. Joe Biden repeatedly lied about having no involvement. Oh, come on, dude. You're getting reimbursement from his company. Not only did he lie about whether he talked to any of his business associates, he said he had nothing to do with his business. And now you did talk to his people, and you actually received direct payments from his business for which you are directly involved. And there's emails showing you being directly involved. Y'all, you're lying. Here's the problem. The House GOP seems to be dripping this one out so slowly. None of these things are landing. Like this story, I see it and other people are like, oh, hey, look at this. But it's like, oh, okay, I don't know, one payment. Yo, if they came out with one big hit and said, here is all the proof, and slammed it on the table, and then maybe held back a little bit, it would land much, much better. Maybe that's the plan for going into 2024. Maybe the October surprise will be the big syndicate org chart of Joe Biden on top with the red yarn going from person to person. But when they do these stories, it's like, yeah, okay, we got him. He's sending money directly to his dad from his company, not personally. it's still such a thin sliver of a story. I don't think it hits that hard.
I don't think it hits at all.
Right.
I'm not even convinced. Like, if you had some kind of significant evidence of significant payments, even that at this point, I feel like would be kind of brushed under the rug by the corporate media. At least it would have to be something that was absolutely devastating to not be just ignored. I really think that the corporate media is just, they're not going to report on it, not going to treat anything like it's a serious
I kind of think
violation of the law.
I kind of think this is all just a mistake for the Republicans, to be honest.
Maybe.
Nobody ever cared about Joe Biden. Nobody in 2020 cared about Joe Biden. Nobody in 2019 cared about Joe Biden. Joe Biden could literally walk onto stage and just take a dump right on the floor and walk out, and it would change nothing. His approval rating is in the gutter because he's a bad leader and this country is facing serious hardship, but no one's paying attention to Joe Biden, the man. Mm-hmm. Nobody thinks he's capable or competent. Nobody wants to vote for him. They want to vote against someone else. So when the Republicans come out and they're like, oh, look what the Bidens are doing, regular people are like, yeah, we don't like him either, but we'll vote for him. So it's funny because Trump had that famous line, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. Yeah, well, Joe Biden could take a dump on the middle of the Oval Office floor with live cameras rolling, and it would change nothing.
There's been so many dumps on the floor tonight. I mean, we're
with the dinks,
all that
but that's
Joe
the point.
talk with Gavin Newsom.
Yeah,
I know.
A lot of poop.
It's a lot taking a dump on the floor, just in front of a bunch of people. But my point is this: when you combine my point by combining all of it is, default liberal types literally don't care what you do.
No, they don't.
They really don't. Again, like I'll reference one of my buddies in California, we were talking, and he's like, one of the things that I'm really sick of hearing is like, someone will be like, oh, well, this guy did this, but that guy did this and da-da-da. And he's like, I don't care. Then prosecute them all. And I think that that's the way that a lot of people feel, but they don't feel strongly enough about prosecuting people that are ostensibly on their team or their side to actually get their representaties to do anything.
We are so past there being a system of laws in this country. Just, it's not even a point to bring it up, right? We know Joe Biden did it. We know what he did. We know about the payments. We know about the phone calls. We know about the flying to Ukraine. We know why he did it. Victor Shokin has sworn testimony. You can lay it all on the floor. We know the crimes are being committed. We know that on January 6th, on one side of the building, police allowed people in, pulled the barricades aside, fanned them in, opened the doors, waved them in, took selfies with them, and gave them tours. And we know that BLM in Atlanta set fire to a Wendy's and were given a slap on the wrist and no jail time. They were given probation and community service. We know that the federal government has not charged the far leftists who stormed the government facilities outside of Atlanta at Stop Cop City, and it's a state level charge only. The idea that there is law and order in this country. So when I say, civil war, people need to start waking up to what's going on. Okay. The January 6ers, the people who are rioting and violent, I get it. Give them criminal charges. But they just arrested a guy recently. He had flown to Nashville for Lady Ballers. He flew back. They arrested him on the spot. Mm-hmm. Even though he had already answered questions 2 years ago. And his story is that I think he stood at the foyer of one of the doors they opened and filmed and then left. Didn't matter. They came after him anyway. And they're going to get every single person.
Didn't he work at the Daily Caller or something like that?
I think this guy was a Republican Party official or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The point is, if you are on the right, the feds are coming for you. Mm-hmm. There is no semblance of justice, and they don't care if you think there is or isn't. Mm-hmm. It's meaningless. So, they are wielding power and violence against people, raiding their homes. If I guess you can tell me what you think civil war is, because I suppose if nothing's being done to combat the corruption, the Republicans are super concerned about Joe Biden getting payments and not so much with January 6th. Now we're hearing that they're going to release the remainder of the J6 footage, but they're going to blur faces. And of course, everyone's saying, yeah, to protect feds.
Yeah, of course.
Because the feds already have all the videos.
Yep. So
here we go. There's no functioning system of laws. We were swatted 15 times last year. Nothing was done.
They never found out. Marjorie Taylor
No,
Greene.
we know. We know.
You do.
We have a general idea of who it was and how it happened, and everything lined up perfectly. And no matter how many agencies we call, and no matter how much evidence we submit, they just laugh and say, no.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene just did an interview with Tucker, got released today, or yesterday maybe. She's had the same thing. They can't find out who swatted her. They won't give her any information.
Well, to be fair, her circumstance and ours are very, very different.
But can't they find out who it is? She brought up that they unmasked Carter Page, right?
It is fair. It is fair to say that properly done, it is damn near impossible to track. There's
automated systems through routers, through
Russia, through
fake
China.
IPs, through,
not only that, I mean, you could take a Yagi Wi-Fi antenna from an apartment building, point it at a Wendy's a mile away, connect to a public Wi-Fi, and then
make a call from Skype.
Yeah, and they're gonna say it was traced to a Wendy's, but how do we figure out who it was and all the footage? It's not that easy. In our circumstance, we actually have serious evidence, meaning that some of the addresses that got swatted are not public record. They're not even in government record. You can't even search for them.
So only a few people would know it.
Only 3 people. And we were like, here you go. And they were just like, eh. And I'm like, dude, only 3 people have I don't even think it was 3 people. I think it was one. One person. And they were like, meh. And I said, it just stops. They don't care. We even had FBI was involved, and they said, don't care.
I kind of
the fake bombs that were sent to us, they didn't care. I'm like, someone sent mock bombs and
to Shank Uyghur or whatever his name is.
And, no, and they sent out robots to our studio, and we were like, we have information on how this is happening, and they're like, we don't care. And I'm like, you guys had to come out for this, and they're like, never called us once, never asked us, didn't care. And so a lot of people actually started posting like, it's the feds doing it to you. And I'm like, well, I don't know about all that, but I can tell you they certainly like that it's happening because they're corrupt, evil, lazy, or a combination of all of it.
Can you talk, Tim? You mentioned civil war. Are you saying that like there's already one going on against the right? They just haven't recognized it yet.
Well, 5th generational warfare, you can call it whatever you want. Some people, it depends on your definition of civil war. But if federal law enforcement is expanded, weaponized, and being used to target political opponents, you can call it a soft coup. I don't know. You can call it whatever you want. I mean, look, the Biden DOJ is going after Joe Biden's rival. Like the federal government under Joe Biden has arrested and criminally charged his chief political opponent.
Yeah, the federal government is not supposed to have an opinion about which political party is running the government. Like they're not supposed to have a say. They're just supposed to say we reflect whatever the people
will
demand.
of the people is, yeah.
They're supposed to be a reflection of the will of the people, they're not supposed to dictate what people should think.
It'd be cool if they renounced their party affiliation when they got into the federal government.
Oh, that doesn't mean anything.
It would just be nice to look at.
Look, you can. I think there's one strong argument as to why we're not in a civil war, because there's only one side fighting. Republicans, what should they be doing? They should be filing criminal charges at the state level. You could have a small district, ADA, file criminal charges, start an investigation over tons of stuff related to federal finance, like at the state level. So if there is a state campaign happening in your red state, you can start looking into donations given. James O'Keefe uncovered a lot of questionable practices in donations. James O'Keefe goes to people's doors and says, you made 10,000 donations. You were making 3 donations a day. And they're like, no, I wasn't. Where's a single Republican prosecutor to be like, okay, it's time to launch an investigation of this? They don't do anything. Meanwhile, you've got the federal government literally trying to put the front runner for the Republican Party in prison. So maybe it's not a civil war. Maybe it's just, I don't know, a coup.
I agree that there are legal ways to attempt to, rectify, but I'm kind of with you that like the law has become so abused in this country in the last 110 years, pretty much since the soft coup of the Federal Reserve and these Jekyll Island dudes, JP Morgan and friends, that it's like accept it and just change the minds of the people so that whoever has the control of the mob is going to be good.
That's the thing. I think it's important to mention that we're winning. And it's because we've focused on cultural issues and less so politics. So while it is frustrating to see Republicans not doing anything, the groundwork being laid by, say, Rumble, Elon Musk, especially with buying X, with parallel economy. This is essentially Dan Bongino, this is Rumble, this is several others, launching a financial transaction system, which we use for Timcast.com. You have Public Square, businesses that support American values. All of these things are creating chainmail that is that's protecting us, and as it grows, it protects more and more of what America should be, could be, and in many ways used to be. So while it's frustrating to watch a lot of this stuff happen, I think it's important to mention too, they can keep trying this stuff, but I think acts of force prove their desperation.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to stop Trump is to just cross the line and try to have him arrested. That precipitates their fall.
You know, I the first that this whole parallel economy thing got really, really real for me was this past week when the Lady Ballers trailer came out. It looks like a Hollywood level production movie, right? Like it looks really good. The preview's funny. I don't know. It's like we're finally figuring things out how to make it really work and take it to that highest quality level.
Yes, but we should say, who cares? Hollywood can go make their weird Marvels that bombs.
Mm-hmm.
Worst Marvel movie ever. Less than the Hulk.
Which one is this?
The new one that just came out, the Marvels.
The Marvel, yeah.
Yeah, it made less money than the Hulk did, and that was considered to be like the black sheep of the MCU. And now the Marvels did worse. And I'm like, yo, they're losing culturally. They're losing really, really bad. Actually, you know what? Let's jump to this story, and we'll talk about it. We have this from the Financial Review. Gen Z could be the most conservative generation ever. They go out less, have less sex, and lose their virginity later. What is up with young people and teenagers? And there's a couple questions about what this really means. So let me break it down for you very simply. First, the most conservative doesn't mean that Gen Z as a monolith believes certain things. It could be that 30% are super far left, but 31% are super conservative. And then people in the middle are whatever. So now it's the most conservative. But what I think this actually means is you have to, when you're talking about conservative versus progressive, you have to look at the relativity of the previous generations. If you took someone from 1650 and compared them to Joe Biden looks progressive as they come, despite the fact that he's an old man. Or more importantly, like Chuck Grassley. Like take like an actual Republican who's considered a conservative, compare him to a dude from the 1600s, and you're going to be like, the guy from the 1600s is backwards and, super far right or whatever, however you describe it. So when we're asking whether or not someone's conservative, the question is, are they more traditional or less traditional by the previous generation standards? And the argument being made here is that Gen Z is less traditional than the previous generation standards, indicating they've shifted back towards traditional values in a way we have not seen in 100 years. We saw this data back in 2018. We are seeing it repeated over and over and over again. That suggests while Gen Z probably has similar politics to millennials, the fact that on certain areas they've moved more traditional, more conservative, this suggests Gen Z is actually the most conservative by movement, not by politics. I want to make sure that's clear. Mm-hmm. We are not saying that a 20-year-old has the same politics as Chuck Grassley. We're saying that a 20-year-old has more conservative views than a 35-year-old.
To throw a wrench in this, this is they go out less, have less sex, and lose their virginity later. I'm sorry to tell you guys, the economy, the inflation, people cannot afford to go out, and because of Tinder and crap, one wealthy guy's getting like 10 women, so those girls aren't around to have sex with anymore for those kids, those guys, those humans.
Right. And that is a good point based on that statement.
Yeah.
But when you also look at what we brought up previously, that Gen Z actually is aligned with boomers on the question of same-sex marriage, and the support for same-sex marriage has declined. That actually suggests politically Gen Z is more conservative. And I think this may be due to liberals abort their kids.
And about internet, it just like ideas spread like wildfire with internet, so do conservative ideas.
Oh, you know what's crazy? I was just thinking, I bet liberals get pregnant way more than conservatives do.
It's totally possible.
I think absolutely true.
If they got pregnant 3 times as much but had twice as many abortions,
boom.
Or twice as much but twice as many abortions.
Look at the point they're making about having less sex means you're conservative. Mm-hmm. Conservatives, and especially Christian conservatives, very religious people, are waiting until marriage, meaning substantially less sex and pregnancies. But then they have those kids. Whereas liberals, they bang like crazy, more power to you, but then they get tons of abortions.
There's actually some new trends that are troubling that I've seen that show that the teens are just having less sex. It's not because it's like the rise of the incels, right? Like they watch porn instead of having sex. And I think there's a real, in Japan, parents hire like strippers and sex counselors for their young sons because they don't pursue women. They view their computers as their sexual gratification.
It's happening everywhere, though. Did you see Kim Jong-un crying?
No.
Kim Jong-un cried, begging the women of North Korea to have more babies.
Wow.
And I'm like, wait, North Korea, like they don't have the internet there. How are they having less kids there, of all places? They aren't subject to the same social pressures as the Western countries are.
What do you think causes baby boom? My theory is that it's an optimism in the future, right? So like the big baby boom we had, what? All these guys came back from winning the war in World War II. There's a huge baby boom. I think we have a different problem now. I think that there's a real pessimism in the future, and there's like a malaise that has taken over this country, and that's why you're seeing decreased fertility rates. Because I have a lot of friends that haven't had kids yet, aren't married, and their number one thing is, I don't want to bring a kid in this world. It's so crazy. And that's always stuck with me because I'm going the exact opposite route. I'm like, I need more I need more kids to change the world.
I strongly feel like I'm not bringing kids into the world because the world is terrible. I feel like that's a cope.
It's a cope.
It is.
I really don't think that's true.
And I don't believe the economy stuff either. We have, I've mentioned this, 8 casinos within 2 hours drive from where we are right now. Like these places can't exist. People are dumping money, and some people say, "Well, it's credit or it's irresponsible." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." Either way, people are choosing to use what money they have on other things. It's often said people are always like, "We're waiting for the right time to have kids." There is no right time.
No right.
That's a myth.
It never gets easier. By the way, it gets harder. So I'm 37. We had number 6 when I was 36. It was tough. You're more tired. You don't have the energy that you have when you're 23 or 19. I had my first at 19. Tons of energy. I mean, it was still tough and challenging, but it's gotten harder and harder and more difficult. Yeah, I can afford it more, but it is way more taxing on your energy levels and stress.
We got Americans are morbidly obese, so it's not food. So what is it? It is interesting. And remove it from the United States and look at North Korea. North Korea is having population problems, and we assume that they're starving. But that clearly food is not the issue when Kim Jong-un cries and begs his women to have more babies.
It might be
That's
like
weird.
A collective consciousness thing. This is a bit out there, woo-woo, you would say. But I do think there's something to the collective consciousness when like 9 people feel good and then the 10th guy walks in the room, he might start feeling good too, just because he can feel the energy. Like that's global. That's in the Schumann resonance in the Earth's magnetic field. I think that there's some sort of communication. But like I went through when I was 26 with this one girl. We were talking about. I was like, yeah, I don't want to have kids because what you were saying, Terry. I don't want to bring them into this crap hellhole. But I knew that was kind of fake. We were saying it out loud, but in my head I was like, it's not really true though. But I did say I don't want to travel all over the world. Like my job's traveling. A lot of it is. It has been throughout the years, and I didn't want to leave them behind when I went and traveled. And I don't want to be that dad that wasn't around like 4 days a week because I wanted to tour. I wanted to go tour, and I never ended up really touring, but I still want to go tour when I want to tour. But I don't know. It doesn't. But then the loneliness of just getting on my computer and being like, what, another one of these days? Like, there's more to life.
How is it? I think it's just really interesting that North Korea is experiencing this. They rule. They control culture with an iron fist. So it is interesting to see that's happening all over the place.
You know, Russia did this huge experiment in the 1920s to abolish the family, and they were too successful, where they ended up having to reverse course because people weren't having kids anymore. So what they did was I forget the term for it, but they like basically honored mothers. Like if you were a mother of X amount of kids, you were given like the ultimate worker title, and it was like the most glorious and venerated position in the country. And they ended up having to do a lot to reverse it. I think Americans kind of chose it though. In the Soviet Union, they liberalized everything they did. They made marriage a 5-minute dissolution process. Yep. They made you raise your kids away from the home. You couldn't even have your grandma.
It's all happening now.
It's happening. But Americans like actively chose it. Right, like we now are doing this whole women's lib thing, which I don't really care if women work, but like. Why do you want, you're going to work for someone, right? You're going to serve someone. Why not your family? Why not your kids? Like, why do you want to work for Jeff Bezos over these little human beings that absolutely love you and will do anything to get your affection and love?
I can simplify it dramatically. Why would a woman choose to enter a pickle jar opening contest against a man? And I'm being as silly and absurd with it as possible. The joke being, of course, women can't open pickle jars. Some women, of course, can. My point is, yeah, men and women are different. And men do a lot of jobs that women would not want to do, specifically due to physical differences. Like carrying bodies out of burning buildings is a job for a man. Why? Sorry, dude. There are some women who can do it. But on average, overwhelmingly, it's going to be a guy who can lift a body and pull them to safety out of a burning building. Why did society decide women should start competing with men in their role? That led to a massive decline in birth rates.
Well, look, I don't think I had that unique of an experience, but my great-grandmother, so I'm the eldest of an eldest of an eldest, so I knew my great-grandmother was 60 when I was born. She was the matriarch. Like, no one messed with her. She was the boss. Like, you didn't want to be on her bad side. You couldn't really fool her. I never really grew up with this mindset that, like, women were inferior to men. Like, it was never even a thing. I actually always thought that, like, I don't want to make grandma mad. I don't want to make my mom mad. I don't want to make, it was just always. But so, like, in my mind, women have always been elevated in our family. And I don't think that that's that strange for most of America. I think most people would defer and do what their great-grandmother said or what their mother said. And so you have this weird thing where women started fighting for equality when they had the whole world. That someone tweeted, I forget who it was, but it might have been Peachy Keenan, who I'm a huge fan of. But she said the problem is that when you proclaim that women can do anything, they end up doing everything. They're the breadwinner and the homemaker. You spend less time with your kids. You spend the weekends doing all your chores and catching up on everything. And I don't know, women were elevated in society, and they were, I don't know. It's puzzling.
The end result is simple. The people who have kids, their ideals will persist, their genetics will persist, and the people who don't won't. It's just that simple.
Well, you were talking about Roe v. Wade earlier, and how, and I think you're exactly right. Like the real issue with Roe v. Wade is it didn't allow the states to experiment. We didn't get to see how different abortion limits in different states and what that would produce. Everyone had legalized abortion up until the moment of birth, and that was that. And so now we actually have a situation where we can see that the results of being a pro-life state and how that is more beneficial to your
32.
your society.
I think the report was 32,000 births attributed to the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
That's huge.
That ain't happening in blue states.
No.
So if we actually see population decline reverse in red states due to actual human reproduction, blue states will still keep declining. And then they can bring in all the non-citizens they want to shore up their numbers. But all that matters is, do human beings have access to abortion? Yes, no. If you don't, you're going to have way more kids. That's just it. Basic math. Y'all can make every argument to factor in every variable, but still the overwhelming mass is going to be people in California. They may increase their population every year by 100,000 per se, but they're not having kids. Mm-hmm. So it still will just be people aging and then passing on. And then they've got to keep, at the bare minimum, they're just maintaining themselves on a treadmill.
What if the illegal migrants have the kids?
They also can have abortions too. Nothing's barring illegal immigrants from having abortions.
They don't seem, I don't know, this is a generalization, but in Mexico, for instance, it's much more culturally acceptable to have large families and lots of kids.
Planned Parenthoods tend to be in minority neighborhoods.
And they target them mercilessly with advertising and PR. It's crazy.
You may be right. And I have considered this, that a different culture, and we're not just talking about Mexico. It's not, these illegal immigrants come from all over the world. Many of them are coming from South and Central America. They may be more religious and less likely to get abortions, but that doesn't change the pressure system that exists where you mentioned they're being targeted. You've got South Park did that funny joke where Cartman is a teacher and he's telling all the Latina girls to get abortions and the black girls. He's like, just cheat, just get rid of the baby and you can be rich. Do like what white people do. But white conservatives are having kids.
Well, here's the question then. You mentioned earlier the Soviet Union had given women like special benefits for having kids. And I've heard like some countries lower tax burden up to like 100%. If you have 4 kids, you don't have to pay any taxes at all. So would there be any value to doing that for women that are illegal immigrants in the United States?
I just don't. I think as a matter of rules, you can't give benefits to illegal immigrants. You can't do any incentives for illegal immigration. They're breaking the law. We have to control our border. But I do think that we have to do this for moms in America, right? My wife works so hard, and I don't know how she does it half the time, but it's almost like society looks down on moms, right? Like, you're a stay-at-home mom. Oh, yeah, that's way harder than your joke of a job sending press releases out for Google, right? Like as some low-level person, like being a mom is a tough job, and it's the most important job. In what world will you ever have little, the people underneath you looking up to you like children do to their mothers, right? Like you will never get that in the workplace. You die, you start a successful business and you die, you are forgotten like immediately. They move on, they find a replacement. You don't do that with your mom. You don't do that with your dad, as long as they're good. You know what I mean? But like, I don't know. I'm kind of ranting now, but
I don't understand the misogyny in general, where it's coming from or why. I mean, maybe it's just I wasn't around it growing up because I had, similar to you, like a phenomenal mother. Like, or the family was so legit, and she was like, if she said it, it happened. Like there was no denying her authority.
That was your experience too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's coming from feminists. Feminists want to. So you get feminists who want to be in masculine roles, and so they attack the feminine role. And now we live in a society where the feminine role is looked down upon. It's insulted. And they argue that they're fighting for women.
I think that at the root of all of these people, these activists that are doing this, I don't think they came from happy households, right? And so what they grew up with, they end up spreading to everyone else. And they cause chaos and dysfunction for all of us. And it's like a cancer. It keeps spreading. And I mean, I don't know. The women in my family ruled the roost. And you know what? If my wife were to say, like, you're not doing this, guess what I'm not doing, right? Like, I defer to my wife on everything. She lets me lead most of the time, but at the end of the day, they make the rules. And if they come down hard on something, you're not doing it. It's not happening.
When I started making internet videos in 2006, and I was like 26 years old. And there was this girl, I was like, maybe I'll start a family with this girl. And then I was like, what would my life be like for the next 15 years? I'll just be making internet videos of like me with my kids. What value is that going to bring to society? And now I realize, it'll show people how to have a happy and healthy family. And then you create it in one spot and it has rippling fractal effects. It's not like I need to go out there and impregnate every woman to have a bunch of kids. I need to show the world how to have a family.
You know, there was a really cool Cheerios ad that came out years ago, like 2014, and it was How to Dad. And it's this dad walking through the house and how crazy it is being a dad and how fun it is. It really showed the beauty of being a father. And we need to make more content like that.
Let's jump to this story as we talk about the potentials for 2024. Military.com says dozens of troops suspected of advocating overthrow of U.S. government, Pentagon extremism report says. What they're likely saying is that they found 183 people who posted things like get woke, go broke, and I don't want to serve a woke military, but, let's read what they actually say.
There's that dude that got booted because he was a communist, too, a couple years back.
Oh, yeah. Remember they had the hat and said communism will win? An annual Pentagon report on extremism within the ranks reveals that 78 service members were suspected of advocating for the overthrow of the U.S. government, and another 44 were suspected of engaging or supporting terrorism. The report released Thursday by the Defense Department Inspector General revealed that in fiscal 2023, there were 183 allegations of extremism across all branches of military, broken down not only into efforts to overthrow the government and terrorism, but also advocating for widespread discrimination or violence to achieve political goals. Widespread discrimination? That sounds like some guy might be like, we'll go broke. I'm like, there you go. You're advocating for discrimination because only their rules apply.
And he emailed like 4 people, so it was widespread.
Yep.
He contacted enough 10 or 11 people.
There's 103 allegations, or what? There's dozens.
183.
There's dozens of people they've identified. So how many Fed plants did it take to find them faking like they were going to set up a coup, right? That's what happened in Michigan.
If there's 183 allegations and they found 78 service members, then, you do the math.
A few hundred.
Is it 105 that are feds?
It's got to be.
So the allegation's like, but that's not a real one because that guy was a Fed. He was just goading people into saying these things.
Fedception, because technically people in the military are already feds.
And he's overthrowing the government.
Agents inside the federal agency.
But advocating for the overthrow of the government, is that just, what counts as that? Is it saying that Trump actually won in 2020,
it could be an FBI agent emailing a dude like, "Hey, want to overthrow?" And then the guy's like, just puts a thumbs up emoji on the question. Like it
It's
could be
probably-
that, and
it's
they'll
probably-
be he agreed.
It's probably even more innocuous than that. It's like 3 dudes are sitting in a room playing Call of Duty, and then the Fed just goes, it'd be cool if like Trump actually got rid of Biden, right? And like, yeah, sure, whatever, dude.
Or they say nothing. He's
That's
like,
it. We got him.
They didn't say no. They just don't even respond to it. And he's like, well, they didn't say no to it,
Sure,
so that's
whatever,
agreement. Dude, I'm thinking of the business plot. Smedley Butler, 500,000 troops about to march on Washington, D.C. Like, they're talking about 50, 70 guys. Are you kidding me?
No, I think the bigger story here is not that there's extremists who want to overthrow the government. It's that the U.S. military is basically weeding out anybody who believes in this country. And so what I see as being more likely here is the troops they're accusing of sedition or whatever, or of they're essentially accusing people of sedition, are probably like regular Americans who are like, hey, man, we got serious problems with corruption. Donald Trump tried to withdraw troops from Syria and they blocked him.
Yeah, Joe Biden's son's on an energy board in Ukraine where we have troops. What the hell's going on?
And if you say things like that, they're going to get mad about it. They're going to call you an extremist. They're going to look what military.com they posted was his Patriot Front. They posted a photo of Patriot Front to refer to these U.S. troops. Now, look, don't get me wrong. Some of these guys might be communists too. Like Phil brought up, there was that one viral story about the guy. What was it? He went to West Point.
Yeah, he was. He would have been as a graduate of West Point, he would have been an officer, and he had a shirt that said "Communism will win" or not. Yeah,
it was in his hat or something. Yeah,
it was in his hat, and then he held his hat to the camera.
Yeah, and he held his hat and he did the fist up, and So he's still on Twitter. He's very low key and stuff, but I follow him.
But they discharged him?
Yeah, he got booted.
Wow.
So.
I see what's going on and in the U.S. with the woke left, and I just think there's like a 70% overlap with Nazis and the left. I mean, the hatred of Jews is absurd. The conspiracy theories, the racial segregationist policies, the collectivist action, the use of symbols, it's like almost the same thing.
The whole of World War II was the left fighting the left, and they drew America in. It was the communists and the Nazis fighting, they're both statist, both collectivist, and the United States is based on liberal principles which put the individual first. And they drug us into their BS European garbage war.
They got FDR to go fascist. He got rid of the gold standard. He basically made this country super fascist, printed all this money.
There's an argument that, and I generally have a negative opinion of FDR, but there is an argument to be made that I've heard people make that is compelling. That is, FDR existed in a time when socialism and big government was
Ascendant.
It was omnipresent. It was ascendant. It was everywhere. And the policies and the argument that people make pro FDR is that the policies that FDR put into place, the social safety nets, actually prevented the United States from turning into an actual socialist country. They were things that obviously liberals and libertarian-minded people don't approve of, but the point wasn't intended to get more power to the government because they wanted to get more power to the government, but it was to prevent the people from turning the United States into a socialist government. Now, I'm not sure that the argument is compelling to me. I'm not sure that I buy it, but I've heard it, and at least it's like, well, okay, that makes sense when you think of the context of the whole world, the whole Western world, at least in the 30s and 40s. It was like that was when big government and stuff was really having its kind of heyday.
Yeah, Great Depression, 1929, and then all these governments are reeling all over the planet. Like, how do we come back from this banker incept? Like, what did the bankers cause that? I don't really know, but I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if the same guys that built the Federal Reserve, that tried to overthrow FDR in 1933 with the business plot that made the bankers trust in 1903, like these bankers, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Paul Warburg, all these dudes, if they were involved with causing the Great Depression in order to buy the country up right after that. Well, and maybe they wanted it to be fascism, but FDR was like, no, it's going to be socialist.
Those are the conspiracy theories.
That wouldn't surprise me at all, because it was like fascism or socialism or die. It was one or the other. Like, you either want massive central corporate co-op, or you want I don't know what's the hell's the other option is.
They're the
Socialism,
same.
social systems, but without the corporations.
Authoritarianism.
Like less corporations.
Centralized control. These arguments about left and right and, communist and fascist don't matter all that much. It's authoritarian versus libertarian for the most part. It's centralized versus decentralized. And so whatever they claim the far right to be is meaningless because it doesn't actually describe what their concern is. Their concern is other. And then when we say far left, it doesn't actually describe, for the most part, our concerns, because the concern is centralization of power among anybody. It could be corporations. It could be government officials. Well, there you go. I guess I just
You solved it. Thank you. Yeah, you hit you got the 100.
Yep.
Yeah, man, centralization is no joke. I mean, it is. You can see the power of it in mass mobilization appeal, but then you look at Kim Jong-un sitting all alone in his palace with all the authority in the world, and the women aren't having sex.
Well, not in the world, just in North
his
Korea.
country. Can't make those girls get pregnant.
Well, no, it's actually simple. It's because they want to be with him.
Oh, maybe.
That's right. They're all saving themselves, hoping that one day, honestly, that could be a component, especially of centralized dictatorships with a cult of personality. There could be a lot of women hoping that they get chosen, so they want to be pure, and that results in a trend in their culture.
There's also the possibility, allegedly, if I understand correctly, there's a lot of starvation going on in North Korea. And if you can't keep yourself alive because you can't get enough food, it's probably hard to get pregnant too.
Yeah, if anyone that has a girlfriend or a wife would know that if she's hungry, that's about where it ends right there.
Get
her some food.
If she's hungry, you're not getting laid.
Yeah,
That's true. But I was more thinking about the biological process of actually building the human being inside the womb.
It starts there.
But Snickers because she ain't the same when she's hungry, and you ain't getting none.
You want yourself. Yeah, but I don't know. Going back to the military.com stuff with the claims about, it's a sensationalist headline. Suspected of advocating overthrow of U.S. government probably is some dude on his computer being like, man, this administration sucks. Somebody should remove Joe Biden.
Whatever it is, it's just about we're going into an election year. There's less than a year until the election, and the government wants the media being in my opinion, an arm of the government. They want people to be afraid of Donald Trump. The way they were. Have
you seen those videos where it's like Joe Scarborough?
Yeah.
Like Trump's going to make Rachel Maddow. He's going to try and execute us.
Yeah.
Rachel Maddow actually suggested Donald Trump will have them executed.
So that stuff freaks me out because they project.
Right.
Like they project what they really want to do. And they're imprisoning us.
You are 100% accurate.
It's freaky. It freaks me out when they start talking like that and accusing him of it.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Well, what is that the new poll? Do you think with Democrats win in 2024, they'll start executing their political opponents?
Look, there are definitely people on both sides that are at that point where they're like, look, it's just time to start cutting people up. I'm sure
that's scary.
Yeah.
I think there's always people like that. But
the question is, if they are projecting and saying that Donald Trump wants to execute them, is that a projection of them suggesting
we have to do it, otherwise they'll do it to us? That's where that stuff leads.
You get these videos because we talked about like Pearl Davis and the Manosphere stuff. You have all these guys being like, nope, every man in the world would cheat on their wives, and it's like you're just saying you would. You're saying you would. You're saying in your mind, if you experience this, you would cheat on your wife. Not everyone is like you. Yeah. So when they scream, Donald Trump is going to do this stuff to us, what they're really saying is we'd do it if we had the power, and if they get the power, they'll do it to us because they view that as the path forward.
I strongly agree with that sentiment. People tend to believe other people are going to do what they would do given the circumstances.
Why do they think this about Donald Trump? Is it because he said he wants revenge?
No, it's because it's projection.
Did he give a hint?
I don't think Trump said revenge. He said retribution, right?
Retribution.
Yeah. So the issue is, the reason why there are these guys that are advocating this idea where if every guy was given the opportunity to cheat on their wife, they would.
Yeah, I saw that one. Push the button
it's
and no one
in their
would
mind.
know.
In their mind, they can't see a circumstance in which they personally would feel differently. They can't empathize or comprehend another person might be like, no, I would not do that. And it's so shocking. The feeling in them is so strong, the desire to cheat on their wives, that they can't imagine any other man could resist that urge to cheat on their wives, which is it's insane. Because not only are you talking about a guy not being able to control whether how horny he is to not cheat on his wife, but that no guy has the integrity, honor, or force of will.
I think part of that with the whole like people that are just like, oh, they would, it's because they've never had the opportunity to. Like if you're a guy that's like in a situation where you get one girl and that's like you landed her and you don't get second looks very much and you're not particularly
They're also saying they never found the one.
You're just like, oh yeah, I would totally, because well, that's like I would never have the opportunity, outside of this one particular situation that I have. And if I was presented with the opportunity, it would be such a rare thing. I don't feel like I could control myself and say no. If you have options, you're kind of like, I don't want to mess up the good thing.
Well, it's also suggesting that these guys who are saying this never met someone they truly loved.
Maybe.
And so they're just like, these people don't matter that much to me. I would, of course, break my word. But I'm not trying to get into that conversation. My point is, this feeling within people, they cannot imagine thoughts outside of their perspective. So when Rachel Maddow says Trump will arrest and execute us, in her mind, she's thinking about how she would feel with that power. And in her mind, she would arrest and execute Donald Trump. It is projection, something they believe humans are capable because they're capable of it.
When I'm trying to empathize with someone that thinks differently than me, first thing I do is I visualize them with a blank slate, not literally a blank slate, but like there is no emotions. Before I try and visualize what they're feeling, I have to let go of what I'm feeling. That's the first step. If you just try and feel what they're feeling, your emotions are already present. So you have to blank it. You have to get rid of it. And then you can kind of start to think it could be anything what they're going through. Why do I think what I have to say is any valuable?
Well, let's talk about how Gen Z's feeling. From the Daily Mail. Younger Americans fearing 2024 election could spark a civil war are preparing for disaster. 40% of Gen Z have spent money on doomsday preparations, new survey finds. And it was 2,179 U.S. adults in January to February. And they found 40% had bought prepping supplies. And the majority believe it's because there may be civil unrest or civil war in the next year.
I wonder what prepping supplies counts as, because if they're just like, oh, well, they bought a handgun and that's prepping supplies, I'm a little leery about whether they're actually interested in preparing for emergencies. But if they're just like, well,
I don't think it's that simple. I think they were asked if they'd spent money preparing for emergencies. So it's likely going to be flashlights.
I changed the batteries in my fire alarm.
Yeah, there's so many. I got a life straw.
We got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
We probably have like 50 downstairs.
I ordered
They're
a
awesome.
machete, like I got a knife, I got a life straw, I got extra shoelaces just
buy
in case
tourniquets.
I have to go hunting.
Buy blowout kits, buy tourniquets and gauze.
So it seems like a large portion are concerned, but I do think that the headline is a bit misleading. The reality is 40% of Gen Z has spent money on preparing for an emergency. Now, how many of them are doing it because they fear civil war? I don't know if it's that much. That's actually not stated in the story. But I do think the fact that Gen Z has actually considered buying things. These are people who claim to be broke, can't afford food, can't afford to buy homes, are saying the boomers ripped them off and stole all the wealth and all that stuff. But they're going to spend money preparing for disasters. It says one of two things. One, Gen Z is, as we already mentioned before, more conservative and thinking long term, and that's all it really means. Or in their world, they are seeing things that give them reason to believe emergencies, disasters, and potential conflict may be arising in the future. The reason why boomers are probably less likely to do things like this is because in their minds, civil war is not possible. But to Gen Z, society is already broken. I mean, these are young people who are teenagers in the first recession, and they're watching all that happen around them. Millennials, I'd imagine, would be in a similar place. Or I wonder if this suggests projection as to what they think is going to happen in 2024. Meaning, many Gen Z people, not all of them, not necessarily the plurality, are far left, are engaging in acts of violence every day. And so the reason they believe they need to prepare for disasters is because they might be the disaster.
So I think you're spot on. I think the only way an actual like open civil war happens is if Republicans take back power and then the left starts doing activity.
No, I don't think so.
You think it could be started by a right winger?
I think it will, in 99% chance, be started by a right winger.
I don't know. I think that I just don't see it. I think all of the talk about the right wing starting a civil war, I just think it's
What are,
LARPing.
what are the hot catalyst issues that could lead to a civil war in this country?
Donald Trump getting elected.
In what way? I mean, like the Democrats, you think will go and target states and?
Yeah, I think. Well, no, I think you'll see BLM and Antifa on steroids. I think that you will have. They really do believe that he is Hitler. I mean, they have been brainwashed to believe that he is.
I think maybe neolibs do, but when Trump got elected the first time, we had a large riot in D.C., and that was kind of it. And then it wasn't until the summer of love that things got truly, truly bad. It's possible that if Donald Trump won in 2020, West Coast states would have seceded from the Union as per that Boston Globe report, which could be the catalyst for a civil war. And so that's a more direct, formal. However, Republicans are more likely in that regard to just be like, see you later. So what I actually see is abortion, border security, and foreign war. I think Antifa, maybe would try and facilitate some kind of escalation of conflict. They believe they are because they want to destroy the system and burn it down. But in terms of issues that are affecting this country that could lead to someone actually getting organized and calling for conflict, I feel like it's more likely to come from someone on the right. Meaning, I've talked about Oklahoma and Colorado sharing a border, where Oklahoma has banned abortion in all cases, and Colorado has allowed it up to the point of birth. That's the kind of oil and water mixture happening right there on the border that can result in major conflict. You've also got child sex changes. Is it going to be a leftist who brings a bunch of guns and opens fire on law enforcement and government because a child was not able to get a sex change, or is it going to be a father and a crew of his friends who get armored vehicles, drive into California to rescue a child who was captured or kidnapped by someone to give them a sanctuary sex change operation in the States?
And maybe that is what, maybe the left, they're passing those laws in Washington and Minnesota and California that allow the state to kidnap kids that end up making
not even the state, third parties. So I think it could be Oregon. I believe it's Oregon. A random person could bring a child from anywhere to that state for a sex change, and the state will not go after that person who did.
Maybe they're baiting. Maybe they're trying to get someone provoked.
Maybe, but my point is the left is playing this game where it's just the destruction of the system all around everyone. When they take institutions, they destroy it. They wear it like a skin suit. If it is going to escalate to a conflict, it's already the left, the federal government, the Biden administration that are targeting and destroying things. If it's going to become a civil war, it's going to be because someone on the right did something.
I can kind of identify with
I guess we can, real quick, I guess we can say it this way. The left is already engaged in the conflict. It's not a civil war because only one side is engaged in violence.
Yeah, if so you take the hypothetical that Trump got elected again, and then there were riots again like there were last time for whatever reason. But last time I was like, where's the National Guard? Why is it 3 days now? On the third day, I was like, what? They haven't stopped these riots? So let's say the National Guard does get called up this time. And then some nihilists in the crowd that are rioting are like, I'm going to die for this cause. They have fully given up and they're willing to die. They charge a police officer, try and grab his gun, get shot.
Already happened.
Killed. Yeah, that kind of thing I can see, like crazy disillusioned nihilists that maybe are wearing all black and they just run at like that could then the media will be like, cops, gun down, and you're like, well, geez, and then the media in flames. I could see like that. But my real concern is the power goes out, the internet goes out, and then just dudes show up at your house with weapons and stuff.
I think the most likely scenario is essentially that there is some small little thing, relatively small, and the government says, we've uncovered a plot. And now they start rounding up people. I think I think Democrats in power is much more Nazi-esque, right?
Well, Republicans aren't going to do what you described, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're Antifa, if you're actually a militant group,
Trump is not going to start rounding up leftists.
No, he won't. I agree.
But I think the Democrats literally already are.
And they're getting away with it. They're getting away with it.
Right. And there are January 6 defendants who showed up an hour after the riot, walked upstairs with no barricades, no glass. Cops waved people and opened the doors, and they were waving little American flags like, what's going on here? And then they were like, now you're an insurrectionist. And they're like, huh? We just walking down the street. We don't even know what's going on. We weren't even anywhere here an hour ago. Doesn't matter. Those people are already getting locked up.
Yep.
So the Biden administration is already rounding up innocent Trump-supporting Americans, and they're being raided every single day. So this is already happening in this country.
But it's a one-sided civil war,
right? Which is why you can say it's not a civil war. If people on the right take up arms and start resisting, now it's civil war.
Now it's a civil war. Yeah.
Where I think the appropriate path is Donald Trump is on a path to victory. We're winning culturally, and so the last thing we want is an escalation of violence to legitimize the things that the left is trying to do. They want the conflict because a civil war would allow them to destroy the Constitution and then overwrite this country and march in with boots, where a lot of regular people would just get on their knees and say, do whatever you want. So if Trump gets in and we actually start arresting and removing these people and have trials for them, then that's the victory.
I think if the culture is like hateful, it doesn't matter. Whoever gets in it's still going to happen. If it's like 1932 Germany, like we have an opportunity to change people's minds before they adopt Nazism. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, but the right has people call the right useless because they won't even file criminal charges against criminals. The circumstance in which Donald Trump takes power and then starts actually arresting, prosecuting, and like Rachel Maddow's psychotic statement, executing people is zero. Absolutely zero. Trump did nothing during the Summer of Love riots. He kept tweeting. What was he? He was tweeting Law and Order. That's all he was doing.
Well, so I have a friend who told me he was in the administration, but he told me that Trump wanted to do the National Guard, but he was advised not to because the military wouldn't do it. Like they would not follow his orders, and that it would cause an even bigger crisis to have military leaders.
Then Trump lost a long time ago.
No, I'm not saying.
But I don't know if that sounds a little bit extreme. If you instruct the National Guard be deployed or whatever because of mass riots, they'd just go stand on street corners.
But look at Portland, right? Like, is the Oregon National Guard actually going to go into Portland and bring law and order to that city?
Donald Trump, if that was the case, if I was the president and someone said, if you call for law enforcement to stop these riots, they'll disobey the orders, and then it'll create a constitutional crisis where the president appears to have no authority. I'd be like, oh, I'll get on the TV right now. Let's roll. Let's roll, baby. Let's make sure everybody in Oregon hears me say, we want the violence in your neighborhoods to stop, and we are asking law enforcement to uphold the law. And then if they refuse to do it, then you say, okay, you are a lawless state and you are in an insurrection. But it's fair that they wanted Trump to do this, to use the imagery and claim that Trump was a dictator who was rolling in tanks and all that stuff. That doesn't matter to me. If Trump was unwilling to shut down the riots out of fear of the perception, and all he was doing was tweeting law and order, then he was not an effective president. So I do think what's likely going to happen is if Trump gets elected is it just puts a dam in place. The Democrats have already, the Clinton Foundation's gone. They're bringing it back, I guess. Their fingers are crossed. But if Trump wins, then this machine is done. Already with Kevin McCarthy losing the speakership, that's $1 billion in IOUs that are just toilet paper. So if we keep this up culturally, we're winning. If politically we take it or even resist to a great degree, it's done. I think what they desperately need is violence. So again, back to the point about Gen Zers concerned about this, perhaps because many of them are progressive and they know what they are going to do. It's kind of like a guy who buys fire insurance on his house and then a day later his house burns down. You're like, you were really concerned about your house burning down yesterday and then it burned down,
Convenient.
Hey, Gen Zers, you're really concerned about an upcoming disaster. Is there something going on in your mind? Have you been marching in protests? Right. You get the point. But who knows?
Yeah, I wonder from just that headline, that Daily Mail headline, if it's actually conflated. If there
is conflated.
That the people legitimately in the things that I am afraid of a civil war, and because of that I have ordered it, or they're just assuming they were afraid of a civil war.
No, they're phrasing it that way to get clicks. But the reality is 40% of Gen Z prepared for an emergency. A large portion, whatever that means, it could be 10%. It could be, I'd imagine at least be a double digits if you're saying a large portion or more than that. Said they feared civil war. But I'll tell you what I actually think is very, very likely. I think the most likely outcome is that 1 year from now, we are sitting in this room saying, we don't know who won insert state. We don't know who won Arizona and Georgia.
Yeah, I think that's realistic. That the day of modern politics is, you consider it over. Like, we can't just assume that a vote does it now. It's no longer that way anymore with machines and computers tallying stuff behind the scenes in secret. Like, we need to make the world the best we can make it on our own and not have to appeal to authorities. Like, that's the whole private sector, the purpose of this country. So let's kick it into overdrive.
Yeah.
That's essentially the argument that the Libertarian Party's been making for 30 years. But the population really wants to use the government to make other people live the way that they want them to. Like that's really what it boils down to. Like Democrats that vote for Democrat policies, they're really voting so that way they can instill the policies that they prefer. And same thing for the Republicans. So the idea that that we just need to empower people and not have government be powerful. That's the argument that, like I said, that's the argument libertarians have been making for forever, and Republicans used to make. I think Goldwater was the guy that said liberty or extremism in pursuit of liberty is no vice. There are people in the U.S. or most people aren't really that interested in liberty the way that the way that we hear people say they are, because it just pans out in elections every 4 years or 2 years.
And libertarians believe in liberty, but conservatives and liberals do not.
Yeah.
Conservative ideology entertains liberty to a greater degree than liberals do, which is really funny. It's like paradoxical.
Yeah.
Liberals today, the modern liberal is one of the most cult-like, political bodies we've seen in a long time. Conservatives, however, are like, take these, check out these, what is the website? IDR Labs or whatever, Moral Foundations quiz based on Jonathan Haidt's research. Yeah. And these questions are gnarly.
Yeah.
One of them is like, they ask you on a scale of not okay. So it's a very, like, it's, what is the scale? It's like not okay, somewhat okay, not sure, not okay. Or it's like, what am I saying? There's not okay at all, a little okay. And then there's, I'm going to get back
neutral.
Kind of okay.
But there's five.
There's 5 degrees. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And so you can say this is good, it's okay, it's bad, it's really bad. And one of the questions is, a man makes a lifelike doll of his niece for self-gratification. Is that okay or not? Libertarians are like, totally fine.
Yeah.
And conservatives are like, no. And liberals are like, I don't know about that, but maybe. And so libertarians have one moral foundation. This is funny. Liberty, that's it. They don't care about fairness. They don't care about anything. They care about, you leave me alone, I can do whatever I want. So long as you're not hurting another person, you can do whatever you want. And the argument is, hey, this doll doesn't hurt anybody. Let him mind his own business. And I'm kind of like, yeah, that's not okay.
But it leads to more, right? Like you allow this, and then guess what? You don't just have that guy making it. Then he turns it into a company. And now you have a whole pedophile industry of people that are now fueling it. And guess what? That pedophile industry that's making these childlike sex dolls, it's now $1 billion industry. Now they're investing it into changing the laws to promote pedophilia.
A lot of steps beyond just the
But that's how it starts.
But the point is, there's no reason to talk about that. I think of the most extreme behaviors. The point is, libertarians care only about liberty. And if a society was based purely on liberty, you would see very extreme things happening all over the place. Lots of drug abuse, extreme drug abuse.
Blow libertarians' mind. Like what you're saying, if you actually child pornography, the industry, girls are being solicited for that industry, which is why watching it is illegal, because people are being used. But if you have an AI that looks like a young girl, and then they start to go into haptic feedback VR to have relations, like, it's not a sex doll. It's an actual virtual image of a real person.
Okay. And
the person
point
wasn't
is,
used.
We're not talking about any of that. The conversation.
Would a libertarian be down with that?
The conversation is not even about libertarians. It's about the question of liberty. Conservatives believe in liberty within their moral framework. Liberals believe in liberty within their moral framework. The liberal moral framework is substantially more narrow than conservatives, and then true libertarians have an extremely expansive idea of what is disallowed morally. So it is not like you can't just say, we could say on a relative scale of liberal to conservative in this country, conservatives believe in liberty more than liberals do.
I think the Conservative Party identifies with libertarianism really in a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways, but there are a lot of things they would not accept, like parents telling their kids to get sex changes or things like that. So clearly, it's not there is a moral line where conservatives say, no, you are not free to do this thing.
And also, there's a lot of things that we're portraying here as permissive that libertarians believe, whereas there are a lot of there are libertarians that are pro-life. Not all libertarians are libertarians. there's an argument that anything that would hurt a child, or actually those are constantly made. Anything that would hurt a child is the same reason why you can have a pro-life libertarian, because it's not that the government is sticking its nose in; it's that the government, if there is a legitimate role for government, protecting the life of an innocent person is one of the things that would be a legitimate role. So
here's what I want to say about next year. We're going to have an election in some kind of television sense. There's going to be I'd imagine every state's going to have a lawsuit. I can't imagine. I mean, maybe the solid blue and the solid red just don't, because there's no point. Any state considered a swing state, it's going to be jammed up in the courts. You're going to have state legislatures coming out screaming, being like, no way, no way. It's going to get way more vocal when the media calls. You're going to have different media outlets. I think it's very likely. You'll have like MSNBC say, and Arizona goes to Joe Biden. And then you're going to have Real Clear Politics say, and no, Arizona's going to Donald Trump. Because they're just projecting who they think the winner is. And the races will be contested. It'll be tight. There'll be judges' rulings. Some sides will say they don't. One side will say, no, that judge's ruling is void. Oh, that's a Trump lawyer, or that's a Trump judge.
It's going to be a mess.
Yeah, it's going to be December, and we're going to be like, well, we think Trump won, but the media is reporting it might not be the case. We don't know.
I feel bad for people that are heavily invested in politics, and I feel like those are the people that should not have political power, because that's a cult. That is a cult worship game, and the media is fully manipulating it.
Yep.
Do not let that shit make you emotional. Just make your best stuff. Now
so
is
what do
the
we do?
time. We make a band. We release a million to one.
Next year, in December, when we're sitting in this room and we're like, we don't know who the winner actually is because different media outlets are reporting different projections. There's active lawsuits like we saw in 2020. And we're going to be sitting like, I mean, look, what I'm describing literally already happened. In 2020, you had states in lawsuits, Texas v. Pennsylvania, a national original jurisdiction lawsuit, and it was the media reporting Biden won, but the whole thing was being contested, and a bunch of reports are coming up about adjudication. But the state legislatures in the states where it mattered were not holding press conferences, were not challenging these results, and they should have been, and that would have forced Mike Pence's hand when it came to the electoral vote count or the certification process.
This kind of show is good, and it'll probably be good next year too, because we don't like punch at the system. Like, we don't go directly at it and to like try and ruin it. That's the big problem that a lot of people in politics make, is they'll go right at it angry, and that'll lose you at the game. But we're good at like encompassing it, I think, just to let people know what's going on. But I think that complaining is not the answer. We got to create something bigger.
I would like to ruin it personally.
Depending on how you're into that, because if it's a really bad thing, it should be stopped.
Yeah,
but it should be changed, not just ended, like not just ruined into smoking ash. I think. Tell me what you want to turn it into.
Failure needs to happen, man.
That's what Ron Paul's been saying for
failure
30
needs
years.
to be possible.
A pile of smoking ash is kind of what I want.
Just like $9,000 cheeseburgers. That'd be so horrible.
What?
We're not talking
about economic ruin.
No, not economic ruin.
We're talking about the
government, the bureaucracy.
The bureaucratic system, the revolving door policies, the lobbying system. All of it needs to be shut down.
Yeah, the government, the economy that we have in the United States can absolutely operate entirely independent of the government. The government does not. We do not need the government to have an economy at all. Period. In fact, the when you argue against the Federal Reserve and when you're talking about the creature from Jekyll Island and stuff, the argument you're essentially making is keep the government out of the banking industry, because that's the first thing the government does to get into the economy. So if you want to have government, if you want to get rid of the Federal Reserve, you're by the very nature of the argument arguing to keep the government out of the economy.
I think the government needs to enforce fairness. I think the problem with the Federal Reserve is that they're doing price controls on borrowing money, on the value of money, right? Like I think, Tim, like you were pointing out that conservatives support liberty within their moral framework and liberals are the same way. I think that's right, but I think that the difference is that I view myself as a conservative or America First guy. I want I want the laws to reflect the basic foundations of morality. You can't kill, you can't steal, you break up monopolies when they get too powerful and have too much control over people.
How do you get to breaking up monopolies from basic morality?
Well, if someone has the market cornered and they're able to jack up prices unfairly, and they can really, private corporations should not have more power than the government. Nothing.
Right, but it's that I think the government's actually causing these problems.
I agree. I totally agree. I think government's doing everything it shouldn't and nothing of what it should. So like that we have a liberalized government. So I want basic things: no sex changes for kids, right? Limit abortion to something that's reasonable. Protect the unborn. No stealing. No fraud. All of that. The left, on the other hand, they don't believe in any of the basic morality and foundations of it. They want to control every other aspect of your life. So it's like, yeah, get on unlimited abortions, have free sex, but guess what? Now we own you. Now we get with all your income. We get to control every other aspect of your life. I think that's the big difference. And so I think it's much better to start with the basics. I don't like the Federal Reserve because they price control the money. But it is nice to have like a banking system that all works and makes sense. Now the question is, maybe it's just not possible.
I love that you brought up breaking up monopolies. If that's like your number 3 thing you felt like the government should be doing, behind what were the other 2 enhance whatever they were.
No killing, no stealing.
No killing, no stealing, break up monopolies. Breaking up monopolies is a huge part of it. Like Alphabet that owns Google, that owns YouTube, is like massively I mean, you could argue it's monopolized social media.
They buy up upstarts that are threats to them that could disrupt them, and then just kill it.
But the problem is like Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street aren't American. They're not. The American government can't like stop it. They're global corporations. So I don't know how antitrust would work in the modern age. They've
got some ties. There's always some leverage that we would have over that. I mean, we still have some say over things.
How are Vanguard and BlackRock, like, what are they a monopoly of?
Ownership of corporations. I don't know. I don't know if I would consider them monopolies necessarily, but they can't be. If they are, they can't be. Well, multinational monopolies are concerning. I should put it that way.
For it to be a monopoly, it has to be like one industry that they control.
They own 20% of every industry. That's how they get away with not seeming like monopolies.
How about something like
of a lot of industries.
If your assets exceed a certain number or something like that, right? If the value of your company exceeds that of several nation states, then there's going to be some restrictions.
And it's you and all of your subsidiary companies, including all your personal wealth and personal wealth of those that you could argue are invested in your company. If they have 1% of the company, then 1% of the wealth.
Nobody that has significant wealth has it personally. I mean, look at Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, but the reason he's rich is because he owns all the rockets at SpaceX, and he owns all the Tesla cars that they haven't sold yet, and all the
and he can only cash out a certain amount of money in stock.
But I mean, like
same thing with Bezos.
If I owned 1% of BlackRock, and I also own another company worth $100 million, you'd have to take that company into account in the value of BlackRock now. Because I'm a part owner in it. So it would just be my personal wealth. It would be my corporate wealth as well.
But value is nebulous. Like, value doesn't mean anything.
They're so entangled in other corporations' value that it's hard to like show like that's a monopoly on paper, but it is. It feels like it. Or trinopoly. I don't know what you would call it.
What Phil is saying is that you're talking about perceived value, not actual value. You're talking about imaginary wealth numbers.
Yeah, it's unrealized.
In what way? What's imaginary?
It's unrealized because it hasn't sold. So if you have something that's worth $10, right? Like
mines. Let's say they own the mines. It's untangible value. Like, what are those mines worth? Whatever you can get out of the ground. We don't know yet.
That kind of stuff. There's estimates that when you can look at a mine, or at least people in the mining business can look at a mine and they can say, well, we estimate that there's X amount of value here. From they'll do core samples, they'll do test digs and stuff, and they say, oh, we can guess that it's about X amount of dollars per yard that you can actually get out of this, and it'll cost X amount of dollars to process the yard of material. So they can actually do that kind of profit. And the same thing with like oil companies and stuff. They can look at what they figure an oil field is worth and stuff. So for the most part, when you're talking about that kind of industry, like when you're, whether it be mining or oil stuff. That's the kind of stuff that we're at least referencing now in this context. When you talk about that kind of stuff, there's very advanced. There's entire industries built around just projecting what you can get out of a certain endeavor, whether it be, an oil field or a mine or whatever. So the idea that you couldn't tell what the value is, that's not quite true.
Like ad revenue, you base it on last year's numbers.
Yeah, I mean,
next year's numbers.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is like, we know that, like, all that remains, we know generally what our publishing checks are going to be, because they're about, we get similar spins every month if we don't put anything new out and stuff. So it's just that when you say monopoly, I'm not sure what you're actually talking about.
Here's
because it just sounds like, the more you talk about it, it just sounds like having the government tell people what they can do with their
check
business.
out these weird numbers. BlackRock's net worth as of November of 2023, its net worth for the company is 106 billion. That's all they're worth.
How much they're worth? Or
That's
is that
the net
how
worth
much
of the company. How much money they move around? Over $9 trillion a year. That's so they're worth 1%, less than 1%. They're worth. They're worth 100 billion, but they move 9 trillion around every year. So they're worth 9 trillion. They can control that money.
No, they're not worth 9 trillion.
What is money? It's your ability to use it.
Ian, you're wrong.
They're 9 million under management.
So like value and money are not the same thing. You understand that, right?
Money is nothing without value.
Right. Correct. Yes. Correct.
So they're moving the value around, so they control the value.
Unless your money is like a silver coin, and then it's
only if they want to say silver's worth anything is it become worth money.
Business.
It's not they. Value exists in the confidence of the
hopefully,
people.
Yeah. Hopefully,
it does.
Hopefully,
that's what
it's
makes it a
net.
currency.
Their whole business model is to manage other people's money. So the trillions of dollars that you're looking at that they're managing, that's other people's money.
Yeah, like it's like your banker. You don't give him your money and then the banker.
But if I had
to just do whatever.
If I had the ability to give all you guys money. But I'm only worth a couple $100, but I can give you 10 million if you please me. Who controls the money?
That's not your money to give, or it's not their money to give away.
Exactly. Technically, it's not, but they still monopolize the ability to move it around.
It's not monopolizing. People are going to them with their money, saying, "I trust your expertise in this field to manage this money. So I'm giving you my money. Your job is to make my money make more money."
Some people are going to them. Other people it's just being taken and given to them. They don't even know. They don't even know who BlackRock is.
What is that?
They have a lock on the market.
The sentence that you just said, what does that mean?
Some people go into a business, they work 9 to 5, they give money to their 401k, they don't know where it's going.
And that means the person who manages the 401ks for the companies has decided that one of the investments they're making is going to be BlackRock.
Yeah, and
so a person takes money and brings it to BlackRock and says, "You manage this."
So I buy ETFs like every week. I don't know what the individual funds inside the ETF, they're like who's managing what and stuff. I just know that the ETF has the products that I'm looking to invest in, so I just buy that ETF. People that give their money to BlackRock, they go to or to Vanguard or whatever, they go to these companies because they're like, "Hey, I've got a big wad of cash and you guys produce good returns, so I want you to take my money and produce good returns." The whole argument against ESG and when it comes to the context of BlackRock and Vanguard is they're mismanaging people's money. And so the actionable situation is people give money to BlackRock and they're supposed to take that money and make more money. But ESG is not the foundation of ESG is not make profit, it's to make these socially responsible decisions. Yeah. So that means that it might cost money. And if you as a fund manager are mismanaging people's money, they give it to you, you're supposed to make more money for them, but instead of putting it into something that is going to produce a profit, you're putting it into something that is ESG compliant and you're losing money, you are not doing your fiduciary responsibility to the people that have given you money to manage. So that puts you in an actionable position. That means that you're in a position where you can get sued by people.
But that's true, and they should be able to in a multinational court. I mean, they're based in New York City, BlackRock is. But then what happens when the government gets involved and starts saying this place is ESG, so it's not up to BlackRock whether or not the money's going to lose them money because the system's already ESG now, we've declared.
I don't understand. Well,
Like, I don't
the
know, it's
ESG is where ESG is where BlackRock decides to invest that money that they're given. The government
based on
shouldn't
their
be
score.
involved.
You know, I'll table this talk for now. We got to
we're
talk to
gonna
Vivek
super checks.
Ramaswamy about it, because if anyone's fighting against the BlackRock monopoly, it's Vivek with Strive, his company. It's another index that you can put your money in. So there are other ways.
Right. Let's go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? Subscribe to this channel. Share this show if you really do like it. That's the most powerful way to help. And head over to timcast.com. Click join us. The members-only show is coming up in about 20 minutes. We're going to read what you got. The first technical Super Chat comes from a member, so it's a member chat. Steven says, what's up? The show. Thanks for chatting. RJ McDougalheim with the first Super Chat wins today's prize of honor. Says, yo. Well, there you go. Josh Berg says, hey, Tim and team. The San Francisco tourist ads remind me of a video called Hastily Made Cleveland Tourist Video. I think we should make one for California. Well, okay. Katoth Swiss, Dick Durbin is a Richard. Haha. Is his name actually Richard Durbin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dick Durbin.
Yeah, Durbin was a slang term back where in Illinois. Because of him.
Durban?
Yeah.
What did it mean?
What do you think?
What do you,
Yeah. Yeah, it was a verb. So if a woman was
there was a verb.
Right. It's really funny because we were like teenagers, but to Durb meant something. Like she's Durbing, you know what I mean? And it's because of him and because how much we hate politicians. So just someone thought it was funny,
It's good.
you know? There you go. Forerunner Captain says Gretchen Whitmer is going to run for president. She already has Democrat funding lined up. I hope she does. She can't win. She's like Hillary Clinton.
I hope she can't win.
Well, she can't. Like, it's remarkable that in 2016, if they chose any other Democrat, Donald Trump would not have won. I just don't. Trump. It's like Hillary Clinton was the person for Trump to beat. Really, it's just.
Hillary Clinton was uniquely unlikable.
Yes, right. It still is, and so is Gretchen Whitmer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Loomer calling Massey an anti-Semite is Pushaw crazy. Yeah, Massey tweeted out, what is it? It's the Drake meme, and it's like American patriotism, and he's like, no, and it's like Zionism, and he's like, yes. And then Laura Loomer said that he was being anti-Semitic because Congress is fighting Hamas. But I'm like, I don't think he's being critical of trying to fight terrorism.
Right.
I think he's pointing out that our southern border is porous, and members of Congress are more concerned with a foreign country.
Chuck Schumer complained at him for that tweet, and then he had a pretty sassy comeback too.
What did he say?
I forget exactly what he said, and I don't have it in front of me, but something about Schumer not caring about the border or caring about caring about Israel more than caring about the border. So it was pretty good.
Jacob Parody says apparently the Democrat senators blocked a subpoena proposed by Republicans to view Epstein's flight logs. It was on Yahoo News a few days ago. Well, assuming that's true, it's because they're probably on those flight logs. So, there you go. James Eaton says, time is precious. Call your parents. Absolutely. What do we got? Hidden Zephyr says, hey, Phil, just saw that you and the guys will be a Sonic Temple in Cbus.
Yes.
You'll be at Sonic Temple?
Sonic Temple, yeah.
In what's Cbus?
Columbus.
Oh, Columbus.
Ohio.
Can't wait. See you guys Memorial Day weekend. Rock on.
It'll be sick.
Memorial Day weekend. When is that? Is that May?
May. That's good.
Yeah. Right on. Grofty says, don't break the UFO, Phil or Ian. Glad you guys are here, but didn't break stuff, LOL.
All right, I'm going to try and fix it.
I didn't touch it.
I had to let it reset.
Well, it's because you keep hitting
Hands
the plug.
off.
Yeah,
You're knocking the
right
plug
here,
out.
my knee is right underneath the cord, so it's a little challenging.
Have you considered not hitting the plug?
I've made it for about a year and a half, actually.
Thinker for Life says, Tim, have you considered closed Tim Hortons coffee and donut shops? What is a closed Tim Hortons? What does that mean?
It means they're not around, or they shut their doors. They're out of business.
Have we considered closed Tim Hortons coffee and donut shops? Specifically, there's a really nice one in Grand Ledge where Red Dawn was on. Oh, you mean to
Like,
reopen?
take the location.
Oh, I mean, we're not doing like, we're not going to be. It's going to. There's a lot I can't say, but our plan isn't to be directly involved in these things. It's to decentralize, but we'll have some degree of involvement. It'll just be light. It'll be more like a weak federal system where the rights are retained by the individual locations to. And one thing we really want for all the locations is local and American-made goods and furniture. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at big franchises like Starbucks, they have everything's the same. No, we don't want to do that. The coffee will be the same, but I really do think it would be great if you went to a coffee shop and it was like, when we serve food, it's from a local farm. It's real American food, and it's brought in the morning, and then it's gone by the afternoon, and we don't get any more until tomorrow. You know, I don't like preservatives. We've been talking a lot about bread and gluten. And it's funny because we got these Spindrift drinks, right? And there's this G symbol on it. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? I saw this on some like chocolate bar or whatever. And I bought a chocolate bar that was like praline or something. And it's got this symbol. It's the gluten-free certification. And I'm like, why is this on my seltzer
kind
water?
of assume that.
Yeah, I know. They put bread in this? But I guess, okay, whatever. And anyway, we started talking about bread. And, you know, the suggestion in the rumor for a lot of people is that it's not the bread. It's the chemicals they put in the bread, the bleaching process and the preservatives that are causing people to have all these digestive issues and joint problems. And they just assume it's the bread because the bread is what they eat when they get the symptom, but it's really something in the bread.
Yep. If you get organic flour and make your own bread, you'll notice it goes through like water. I mean, not literally, but it's compared to regular bread with potassium bromate or that's sprayed with glyphosate before harvest for desiccants. It's noticeably awesome.
Ginger McIsaac says, look out for a 1099-C cancellation of debt form. If you don't get it, report it. You will get a CP 2000 letter for underreported income about 18 months later. I just explained an extra $3,500 tax bill assessed for this reason. Yeah, so all these people are getting their college loans forgiven. They likely will receive a cancellation of debt form, which is income. They're going to have to fill out the paperwork.
That would piss off Biden's voters so bad.
It's like 4D chess.
They're like, I couldn't afford it last year. What makes you think I can afford the taxes on it this year? That's insane.
Yeah. Cam Girl Asuna says, Tim, you don't think Dems are telling people to abort? They literally are. Remember that comedian telling everyone to get abortions, for example? Yeah, wasn't that Michelle Wolf or something? Mm-hmm. She was like, you get an abortion and you get an abortion. And it was just like, you are a dangerously psychotic individual.
Regrets that. I think she regrets that.
No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Lena Dunham said she wished she got an abortion. But the funny thing is, she doesn't have a kid. So, like, it'd be really bad if you had a kid and you were like, I wish I had an abortion. It's another thing when you don't have a kid and you say you wish you had an abortion, because then she's implying she wants to get pregnant so that she can just have one for no reason.
It's psychotic. It's so mentally ill. It's so crazy.
And it's death. Death is not something to joke about.
No.
No, c'est la vie. What do we have? 19th Shadow says, you are correct, Terry. I am miserable. I am borderline depressed. However, I will still vote for a better tomorrow. Is that in reference to not having kids or something?
I don't know, but I do think that it's important. Like, I like that Trump is saying that he's our retribution, but, big but, you got to have a plan. Like, people have to have something they're going to vote for. And maybe there's a good group of us that want retribution, but also we got to fix some stuff too. There's some major problems.
Ryan Sargent says, it's easy. Joe has an unexpected medical event. DNC throws up any semi-popular candidate. Yeah, but if they want to win, you need someone pushing and creating a narrative right now. Like the idea that we are like, what is it? Iowa is a month away, right? 6 weeks.
It's about a month away.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's January.
5 weeks. January 15th, I think.
Yep.
Jeez. Ron DeSantis said he's going to win. What do you think?
His team
No.
bailed on him.
No.
It's not even close.
Yo, but what? Hey, man.
He just
What
did
if he does? You're going to be like, wow.
Yeah, I'll be shocked. I will be shocked. I will be totally shocked.
He just did Peterson's podcast, and it was all just Peterson asking personal questions about Ron DeSantis, and it was not compelling.
You know, look, I think the Daily Wire guys are really, really for DeSantis. I don't blame him. I think there's a really great argument for Ron DeSantis, but his campaign has just been apocalyptically bad.
You need charisma.
Yeah.
It's not even about charisma. The dude could hide in a basement if his campaign was being run properly. But just like look, going online and having your PR staff attack people is a surefire way to lose.
Yeah.
Will Chamberlain handles it masterfully. Calm, reasonable, and respectful responses to people who are angry with him. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, they should have put Will in charge of the campaign.
Oh my gosh, it would have been so good.
Yeah, because a lot of what's happening is Brusiewicz, master troll, Laura Loomer. How do I describe Laura? She is there's no one who supports Trump more than her, and she is vicious. When she goes for a story, she's coming at you with everything she's got.
She's like a red witch. That's not a bad thing.
What is it? What is a
like she's
red
a
witch?
fire mage, fire magician.
fire
but she's
mage.
like you consider her a witch.
You mean
'cause
like-
she's like in the woods, you know?
You mean like a red mage from Final
Yes,
Fantasy?
like a red mage. She's like a fire mage. She's
Right.
got that fire intensity.
The way you counter this is not by trying to imitate it, because you cannot. Ron DeSantis has no one as passionate as Laura Loomer, and no one as masterfully trolling as Alex Bruce.
But the thing is, Alex and Laura they're mimicking Trump himself, so that's part of it too.
No.
Well, they're raising up to his level of trollness, and like DeSantis doesn't have that, so there's no level. It becomes awkward if you try and be a troll in DeSantis's case. He's like a logical, book smart guy.
Laura is like,
which is why
a
Will is so
figurative
great.
sidearm for Donald Trump. Like, Laura is not like Trump. You know, Donald Trump is boisterous, confident, very, very funny. Laura Loomer is at the tip of a spear, and no one supports Trump more than her. Alex Brucewitz is tactful. He's a strategist, and he knows how to troll. So what happens is the DeSantis people get whipped up into a frenzy and respond enraged. But it's like anybody who's ever heard like the old Kung Fu masters about not getting angry when you're in a fight because it clouds your judgment. That's exactly what they did. They knew that when they were engaging in this fight, they're like, I'm going to taunt my opponent until they lose control, and then I'm going to dance around the octagon, and they're going to fumble and just swing and miss and burn out all their energy. That's what happened. Will is the guy who has responded masterfully, but they didn't utilize him. The campaign is miserable. It's unfortunate, really. But to the Jordan Peterson thing, I don't think we've gotten an actual tough interview with Ron DeSantis, except for Patrick Bet-David did pretty well, especially with the boots. I think it's as best as we're going to get.
Okay, so I think it's hilarious that PBD brought the boots out and stuff. I don't know if that qualifies as a serious interview though, because of the boots.
Yeah, it's like a gotcha moment.
Has anyone asked DeSantis about his campaign? I mean, this is a huge talking point where everyone's saying his campaign is being mismanaged and he won't fire these people. I don't know how he didn't fire Christina Pushaw.
That's who he should have fired like right away. Is
Instantly.
She was the linchpin in all of it. It seemed like.
I think I said it before. I'll say it again. I don't remember. Was it Brucewitz or was it Brucewitz put out the photo with her knees were photoshopped to be red? Like
It was Alex.
Was it Alex?
I don't
who did
know.
that?
That's funny if it was though. I didn't know.
A photo was released showing her with a bunch of people. Someone used Photoshop to make her knees look like they were red from being on the carpet. And I think that broke her because it was around that time she went from encouraging and cooperative with all of the people who are in this space to instantly just anyone who dare say anything about Ron, she is going to just attack relentlessly along with all of her staff and these other influencers. It was like a switch was flicked. I think that broke her. You know, she was running this campaign. We had talked to her before, like our people had asked her to come on. She said yes. We're like, it's really cool. And then that moment happened, and then all of a sudden she's just screaming at the top of her lungs and bashing her face into the wall like a lunatic. And that's what it's been ever since.
To have that kind of vanity in politics is like, yo, you're going to get made fun of, and then you're going to be up against Vladimir Putin's chief of staff, and like, how are you going to handle that when the real stuff's on the table and it's not about your looks anymore? I don't trust her. I didn't trust it. Their campaign was terrible.
All right, we'll grab some more. We've got William Ubelis. Is that how you pronounce it? Disabled vet, recently unemployed, still trying to reach Give, Send, Go goal to get car fixed. Needed to find a job and see my son for the holidays. Please donate, Give, Send, Go. It's GBB35. Good luck, sir. Good luck on this Christmas. Perhaps some people will gift you for the holiday season so you can see your kid. That's GBB35 on Give, Send, Go.
Oh, Christmas. It means more Christ. I like it.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas.
Mas Christ. Be Cristo.
Feliz Navidad. All right. We got Waffle Sensei says, I don't know exactly what will happen in the next year. I see them locking up Trump, maybe ballot removal. Biden drops out potentially for Newsom. But even if we lose this election, we are still winning the culture and the future. That's the interesting thing. The only option they're really going to have is they have to win and they have to start locking everyone up. Mm-hmm. They got to lock up Ian. They got to lock up me. They got to lock up Terry. Phil, you're cool, but they'll make you write songs that are in support of them.
They're not gonna like it.
I think this is like it's people are realizing how unimportant politics is. Like it's never been part of my life that big. If my friend voted for whoever, we'd be like, "Oh, you voted for that guy? Okay, I voted for the other guy. Let's go play cards." And like we're back to that. We're back to like real life where you make life good, or no one does.
But we are still there. We never left. Right. So the way I describe it is you've got the left and the right, these two like overlapping balls in a Venn diagram. And then on the left, this tumor started to grow, and then it got bigger and bigger, and then eventually just slopped off onto the ground. And that's the left. And the left and the right's still there. Like if I were to have a conversation with Ben Shapiro, we'd be like, here's what I disagree on. Well, here's what I disagree on. I'm like, oh, interesting. Who are you voting for? I'm voting for him. I'm voting for him. I'm like, oh, wow, we'd shake hands. We'd leave. That still exists. I can still sit down with Glenn Beck as someone who leans more to the left than he does, and we can laugh and make jokes, and we can talk about who we think should win and why. And then once we're done, we'll be like, well, good luck to you, man. I hope you get the vote.
I guess it is a bit more intense, and politics are a little more important because of the economy, because of the inflation. Is like people were telling me for the last 25 years, yo, the American empire is going to end. The American empire is coming to an end, just so you know. And it seemed so like fantasy reality, like, okay, I believe you, but I don't see it. I can't see it until it happens. And now we're like, oh, okay, mass inflation. This is sort of how it happens.
Wow, look at this. Is Too Busy Trolling says, I got demoted from sergeant for posting Donald Trump make our unit great again. Ooh. Also, letting us grow beards will not solve the retention problem, I guarantee it. Is that what they're doing?
Maybe.
You can grow beards now. I heard that there was like something that happened a while ago. They said it was racist to make people in the military shave, because black people have different shaving issues and they get ingrown hair or something. It was actually some leftist activists were complaining about this. I think it was like Occupy.
It's supposed to be for the soldier's own safety, I think, so you don't get your face grabbed in a melee.
No, I mean,
that's the argument. It's from it comes initially from like wearing gas mask when it was important, but they said it doesn't really matter anymore. But I don't know. Now it's all about like tradition, etc. Phil you probably know more of that than I do, Phil.
Well, I mean, it was because of gas masks and stuff like that, and then like when they allowed, like when Sikhs became more prevalent in the U.S., Sikhs and Muslims can't shave, or they're not supposed to shave for their religion, so that became a thing that the military started to take into account. So I believe if you're a Sikh, you can, and you're in the Marine Corps, you can wear a
turban.
A turban. Okay, yeah, you can wear a turban
because you don't
in
get
your dress uniform
or your facial hair whatsoever.
Yeah,
but if they get gassed, they just don't.
No, they just put a mask. Mask still works. Mask still fits. It's not about that anymore. It's the connection's still fine. So
yeah, and I mean, most of the gas stuff that people worry about now is CS gas. I mean,
exactly.
If you're going into a place where the military thinks that you might have an issue with actual like nerve gas or something, they would probably be like, "Look, guys, you don't have to shave." But you're going to die if you don't, so you probably should. So.
All right. Paul Tascalo says, re-swatting, no such thing as private information. Everything is publicly available if you know where to look. There are a few holes you need to plug. Reach out. I'll show you. I used to find people when I was a lawyer. I see what you're saying, but I disagree. There absolutely is private information. And I will stress, the levels that we went to protect certain information is absurd. And I'll keep it simple. There absolutely are ways of protecting information and making and guaranteeing it nobody finds it. Like I can already tell you this. People did this in Seattle. Yagi antennas outside your house, which allow to so you can get what is something reasonable with a decent Yagi, like a kilometer range. Yeah. So Yagi are directional Wi-Fi antennas. You point it out your window. You can't see because it's in the building. It's aimed and we're talking about someone on a hill pointing it down, and they're getting Starbucks Wi-Fi from like a kilometer away. Yet you're not going to find that person. They're using air-gapped computers with no information that were recycled numerous times. The argument could be that, well, we traced these are people who built random components, spoofed the information using custom operating systems or using things like Tails OS. So they've really jammed up how you can track it down. And even if you were to figure out the machine they were using based on the machine's information it was giving out, you still wouldn't know how they connected to the Wi-Fi. You'd know that within a certain range, okay, maybe within a kilometer, you start searching, but they could have lit that computer on fire and it's completely gone. As for like properties and things like this, oh, come on, it's so simple. Someone else buys a property and they buy it under a trust, so the benefactor isn't related to you. There's no way to search for that person if you don't know what their name is. So we're not talking about like banking information or credit card information, which can be found. We're saying something like, imagine a guy wants to be able to stay in a house. So someone else is listed as a benefactor on a trust, which owns the property, and it is in no way connected to the other person. And this is a random person from another state, or a corporation from another state, which is a subsidiary of another corporation. And then it never traces back to the original person who's intending on living there.
Look how easy it is to hide ownership of assets, BlackRock. And you're
Not
making me
even,
think about how they do it on the big
I'm
times.
not talking about ownership, because that would be a tax issue. I'm saying somebody wants to live in a house and have it obscured. Then a random third party is the benefactor on a trust that owns a property, and the trust is based from out of state. And so how do you know to search for John Doe if you're looking for Ian Crossland? You would not. It's impossible.
But how do you, if you're the owner of the house, how do you guarantee that you still own the house? If the
I'm not talking about ownership. I'm talking about obfuscating your residency. So you are living in a house that the only way they could probably find it would be by physically stalking you. But if that's not the issue, and we're talking about someone out of state getting access to information, then we're talking about someone just generally leaking information. Otherwise, again, like a trust is formed in state A, the benefactor is person B, the beneficiary. The trust owns the property, and then you, Ian, are staying in that property and paying rent or something in cash, or maybe you're not paying rent. Maybe you're staying there. How would the swatter know to search for person B as the benefit or the trust's name? They could make guesses. Now, this person lives in this area. Look for a property owned by a trust, and then it gets even easier. Now it's bought in a third party's name who owns the property and lets you stay there, and they don't know that third party and don't even know what even name to look for.
Do you think the USPS has their mailing list that they sell? Companies can sell their mailing list. Can someone get a hold of that? Like the address of every American citizen with a house? I wonder if that's available.
They used to do that in the phone book.
The white pages.
Yeah.
Yellow pages.
So in terms of our property that got swatted, I won't explain how we did it. It wasn't the way I just explained, but there are ways to buy property to have the information protected. Somehow the swatters got access to this information, which was only available to 3 people. And I don't want to say more than that for security reasons. And so we went and said, hey, we can rule out how this happened. And they were just like, meh.
As a brief aside, like the whole encryption era of like having protected data, I was talking to this computer scientist. He's like, well, quantum encryption is broken. They're going to undo all the past 20 years of encryption, and everything, all your emails, everything is going to be public of all the people. It's going to be like a war hack. Anyway, I don't want to derail too much. It's just a mind-blowing thing to think.
Well, my friends, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share the show with all your friends if you really do like it, because just think about it. If every single person who watched this show shared it, we would be the biggest show in the world, because we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people sharing every single night to their 1,000+ friends or whatever. But go to timcast.com, click join us. The members only show is starting in a couple minutes. We're going to have a lot of fun, not so family friendly. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast if you want to watch the new skate clips we're putting up, because we're launching the new show, The Boonies. We are investing several $1 million into the largest private skate facility probably on the East Coast. It's going to be epic. We're having a bunch of pro skateboarders come out and other pro athletes. A lot of work is being done here. Several videos have already been released, and we're starting slow, but we're just starting. Construction is beginning soon. We just signed the deal to begin one portion of the park, so it's going to be amazing. And check that out. You can follow me on Instagram at Timcast. Terry, do you want to shout anything out?
Thanks so much for having me coming on. We got this huge gala. It's basically sold out with Tucker Carlson, Riley Gaines. She killed it today in the hearings. It's on Thursday, appfball.org. Check it out.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I am Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Amazon Music, YouTube, the internet.
Out of curiosity, appf.org?
AmericanPrinciplesProject.org, but if you want to learn about the gala with Tucker and Riley, it's appfball.org.
appfball.org. Where is it?
It's in Washington, D.C. at the Ritz-Carlton.
Thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for having me.
I'll see you later at Ian Crossland. Check me out. Peace.
Yeah, see you guys in the after show. I am Serge.com as always. Pleasure having you here today, my friend, again. And yeah, see you guys soon.
We'll see you all over at Timcast.com in a couple minutes. Thanks for hanging out.